Fate always knows best. Trust the Luna ceremony, and your true mate will find you. That's what Nova's mother whispered to her the night before she died, clutching Nova's small hand with fingers already cold. But Nova would learn that fate could be cruel, that destiny could be a cage, and that sometimes the only way to escape your predetermined future was to choose the most desperate, reckless act imaginable, kissing a filthy beggar in front of the entire pack to make yourself unwanted, unclaimed, and free. She didn't know that the beggar's eyes held ancient gold. She didn't know that his rags concealed scars from 100 battles. She didn't know that the dirt on his face was deliberately placed, a disguise worn by the most powerful alpha in 5 territories. And she certainly didn't know that her desperate kiss to avoid one fate would seal her to another far more dangerous, far more consuming, and absolutely inescapable. The Luna ceremony was supposed to be magical. For Nova Thorne, it became the night she discovered that running from destiny only makes it chase you faster. Chapter 1. The Omega's Burden. The silver chains felt heavier today. Nova Thorne had worn them since her 14th birthday, the day her wolf failed to emerge, the day she became the shame of the Crescent Moon Pack, the day her father stopped looking her in the eye. 5 years later, the chains remained, delicate silver links that circled her wrists like bracelets, marking her as Omega, wolfless, broken. Move faster, Omega. Vivienne's voice cut through the morning air, sharp as a whip crack. Nova's hands burned as she scrubbed the marble floors of the pack house, her knees aching against the cold stone. Around her, the building buzzed with preparations for tonight's Luna ceremony. Flowers everywhere, white roses for purity, moonflowers for destiny, silver ribbons streaming from every column and archway. Yes, Lady Vivienne, Nova murmured, keeping her eyes down. Vivienne Ashcroft circled her like a predator, her designer heels clicking against the floor Nova had just cleaned. The beta's daughter was beautiful in the way poisonous flowers are beautiful, pale blonde hair, ice blue eyes, a smile that never reached past her lips. You've missed a spot. Vivienne pointed one manicured nail at a section of floor. Right there. Oh, wait. Her foot shifted, deliberately kicking over the bucket of soapy water. It flooded across the marble, erasing an hour of Nova's work. Now you've missed several spots. How clumsy. The watching pack members laughed. They always laughed. Nova said nothing. She'd learned that silence was armor, that words only gave them more ammunition. She simply reached for the mop, her silver chains clinking softly. Don't bother, Vivienne said sweetly. You'll need to get ready for the ceremony anyway. After all, even Omegas are required to attend. Her smile turned razor sharp. Who knows, maybe some desperate, low-ranking wolf will take pity on you. Stranger things have happened. Though not much stranger, someone muttered, triggering another wave of laughter. Vivienne leaned down, her voice dropping to a whisper only Nova could hear. You know what everyone's saying, don't you? That Beta Rowan is going to claim you tonight. Poor, desperate Beta Rowan, whose mate died in childbirth, who needs someone to raise his brats and warm his bed. Someone with no other options. Someone like you. Nova's hands tightened on the mop handle. She did know. The whispers had followed her for weeks. Beta Rowan was 53 years old, brutal in his discipline, with 3 children who were nearly her age and despised her. The Luna ceremony was sacred. When an alpha or high-ranking wolf claimed you during the ceremony, you couldn't refuse. The bond was considered blessed by the moon goddess herself. It was supposed to be romantic. For Nova, it would be a prison sentence. Nothing to say? Vivienne straightened, her voice loud again. How wise. An Omega should know her place. She glanced at the ornate clock on the wall. The ceremony begins at moonrise. 6 hours. I suggest you make yourself presentable, though I suppose there's only so much you can do. She walked away, her entourage following, their laughter echoing through the hall. Nova waited until they disappeared before allowing herself to breathe. Her reflection stared back at her from a polished silver platter on a nearby table, dark hair that never quite tamed, gray eyes that held too much sadness for 19 years, a face that was plain at best. Not ugly, but not memorable, not special, not enough. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Fate always knows best. But what if fate was wrong? What if the moon goddess had made a mistake with her, had forgotten to give her a wolf, had marked her for suffering. What if she could rewrite her own destiny? The thought had been growing in her mind for weeks, ever since she'd overheard Beta Rowan discussing his claim with her father. The Luna ceremony had rules, ancient rules. An alpha or high-ranking wolf could claim any unmated wolf during the ceremony. But there was one exception. One loophole that everyone knew but no one ever used because it was considered shameful. Disgusting even. If you were already claimed, if you'd already chosen someone, you couldn't be claimed by another. And if you chose someone so beneath your station, so unworthy, so repulsive that no one would challenge the bond. Nova's heart hammered against her ribs. It was insane. It was social suicide. It would make her an outcast forever. But wasn't she already an outcast? Wasn't she already at the bottom? What did she have to lose that hadn't already been taken? Freedom. She could lose her freedom, or she could fight for it. The decision crystallized in her chest, like ice turning to diamond, hard, unbreakable, clear. She would not be claimed by Beta Rowan. She would not spend her life as his servant, his broodmare, his punching bag when the moon made him mean. She would choose her own fate, even if it meant choosing a beggar off the street. Even if it meant kissing someone unwanted to become unwanted herself. Even if it meant burning every bridge and walking into an unknown future with nothing but her dignity intact. The silver chains on her wrists caught the light as she straightened her shoulders. Tonight, at the Luna ceremony, she would do the unthinkable. And tomorrow, she would face the consequences. But at least they would be consequences of her own choosing. Chapter 2. The plan. The afternoon sun slanted through the narrow window of Nova's room, if you could call it a room. It was more of a converted storage closet on the ground floor of the pack house, barely large enough for a cot and a wooden chest that held her few possessions. But it was hers, and more importantly, it had a door that locked. Nova sat on the edge of her cot, her mind racing through the plan that had seemed so simple in theory but grew more complicated with every passing moment. Find a beggar. Kiss him during the Luna ceremony. Claim him as her choice before Beta Rowan could claim her. Simple. Insane. Possibly brilliant. A knock on her door made her jump. Nova? The voice was soft, familiar. It's me. She opened the door to find Mira standing in the hallway, her arms full of fabric. Mira was the closest thing Nova had to a friend in the pack, a young she-wolf who worked in the kitchens and had never treated Nova with cruelty, only quiet kindness. I brought you a dress, Mira said, slipping inside and closing the door behind her. For tonight. I know you probably don't have anything suitable for the ceremony. The dress was simple but beautiful pale silver silk that would catch the moonlight, with delicate embroidery at the hem. Far nicer than anything Nova owned. Mira, I can't. Yes, you can. Mira's brown eyes were firm. Everyone deserves to look nice at the Luna ceremony. Even if... She trailed off, the unspoken words hanging between them. Even if you're an Omega. Even if no one will want you. Even if I'm planning to do something absolutely crazy, Nova said quietly. Mira's eyes widened. What do you mean? Nova hesitated, then made a decision. If her plan was going to work, she might need help. And Mira had never betrayed her trust before. Beta Rowan is going to claim me tonight, she said. Everyone knows it. My father has already agreed to it. Mira's face paled. No, Nova. I know what he is. Nova's voice was steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. That's why I'm not going to let it happen. She explained her plan quickly, watching Mira's expression shift from shock to horror to something that might have been reluctant admiration. You're going to kiss a beggar? Mira whispered. In front of the entire pack? Nova, they'll exile you. They'll leave me alone, Nova said firmly. That's all I want. To be left alone, to be free. Even if I'm exiled, even if I have to live as a rogue, it's better than being trapped with him for the rest of my life. Mira was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, Do you even know where to find a beggar? Nova's confidence faltered. That was the flaw in her plan. The Crescent Moon Pack was wealthy, prosperous. They didn't have beggars within their territory. She'd have to venture outside the pack lands, into the neutral zone where rogues and drifters gathered. The old market, Mira said suddenly. On the border. There are always travelers there, people passing through, some of them rough-looking. Poor. She met Nova's eyes. "I'll come with you. You can't go alone." Relief flooded through Nova. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Mira's jaw set stubbornly. "You're my friend. And besides, someone needs to make sure you don't pick someone actually dangerous. A beggar is one thing. A serial killer is another." Despite everything, Nova felt a smile tug at her lips. "Thank you." They left the pack house through the servants' entrance, drawing their cloaks tight against the cooling air. The Luna ceremony wouldn't begin for another 4 hours, but the preparations were already in full swing. The ceremony grounds, a circular clearing in the forest, ringed with ancient stones, would be lit with thousands of candles. The unmated wolves would stand in the center, while the pack surrounded them, and when the full moon reached its peak, the claiming would begin. The old market was a 30-minute walk, situated exactly on the border between pack lands and neutral territory. It was a ramshackle collection of stalls and tents where traders sold everything from herbs to weapons, where information flowed as freely as ale, and where people didn't ask too many questions. It was also, Nova realized as they arrived, far more crowded than she'd expected. "Festival day," Mira murmured. "I forgot. The harvest moon brings traders from everywhere." The market buzzed with activity. Wolves from different packs mingled with humans who'd learned to coexist with their supernatural neighbors, and even a few fey creatures with their otherworldly beauty and predatory grace. Nova pulled her hood lower, not wanting to be recognized. "There," Mira whispered, nudging her. Nova followed her gaze to a figure hunched against a crumbling stone wall at the market's edge. He was draped in rags, his face obscured by matted hair and a thick layer of grime. His clothes were little more than tattered cloth, and he held out a wooden bowl with trembling hands. Perfect. He was exactly what she needed, visibly poor, obviously desperate, and unlikely to refuse a kiss that came with the promise of a meal and shelter. "Are you sure about this?" Mira asked quietly. Nova's heart hammered in her chest. No, she wasn't sure. She wasn't sure about anything except that she couldn't go back to the pack house and let Beta Rowan put his claiming mark on her neck. "I'm sure," she said. They approached the beggar. Up close, he was larger than she'd expected, broad shoulders despite his thinness, long limbs folded awkwardly as he sat against the wall. His smell hit her first. Unwashed skin, old sweat, and something else. Something that made her wolf. Wait, her wolf? Nova froze. She didn't have a wolf. She'd never had a wolf. But for just a moment, she'd felt something stir inside her chest. Some ancient recognition that made her, "Please." The beggar's voice was rough, barely more than a rasp. "Spare a coin?" The moment passed. Nova shook herself. It was just nerves, just her imagination playing tricks. "I have something better than a coin," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I have a proposal." "Hi." The beggar's head lifted slightly. She still couldn't see his face clearly through the grime and hair, but she caught a glimpse of his eyes. They were the color of amber catching fire. "What kind of proposal?" His voice held a note of wariness. Nova took a breath. "Tonight, there's a ceremony. The Luna ceremony. I need you to attend it with me. I need you to accept a kiss. In public, in front of my entire pack." The beggar went very still. "Why would you want that?" "Because I need to be claimed by someone of my own choosing before someone else claims me." The words tumbled out faster now. "I'll pay you. I'll give you food, shelter, whatever you need. It's just one kiss. One public moment. After that, we can go our separate ways if you want. But I need you there. I need you to be my choice." The silence stretched between them. Nova became aware of Mira's hand on her arm, of the market sounds fading into background noise, of her entire future balanced on this stranger's answer. Finally, the beggar spoke. "You would choose a beggar? Someone like me? To shame yourself before your pack?" "Yes," Nova said simply, "because being shamed is better than being trapped." Another pause. Then the beggar slowly, painfully, rose to his feet. He was tall, very tall, even stooped and weakened. He towered over her. "What's your name?" he asked. Nova Thorne." "Nova," he repeated, as if testing the name. Very well, Nova Thorn. I accept your proposal. I will be your beggar at the Luna ceremony. Relief crashed through her so powerfully her knees nearly buckled. Thank you. Thank you so much. We need to leave soon. I know where the Crescent Moon Pack holds their ceremonies, the beggar said. His voice had changed slightly, grown stronger. I'll be there when the moon rises. Something about the way he said it made Nova's skin prickle with awareness, but she pushed the feeling aside. She had what she needed. She had her escape plan. Come on, Mira urged, pulling at her arm. We need to get back before someone notices we're gone. As they hurried away from the market, Nova glanced back once. The beggar stood exactly where they'd left him, a tall shadow against the wall. For just a moment, the setting sun broke through the clouds and caught his eyes. They gleamed like molten gold. Then the clouds shifted, and he was just a beggar again, just a desperate man in rags, just her ticket to freedom. Nova turned away and didn't look back. She didn't see the beggar's lips curve into a smile. She didn't see him reach up and deliberately smudge more dirt across his face. And she certainly didn't see the 4 massive wolves that emerged from the shadows and bowed their heads in submission as he passed. Chapter 3. The Luna Ceremony. The ceremony grounds thrummed with ancient magic. Nova could feel it the moment she stepped into the stone circle, a pulse beneath her feet like a second heartbeat, old as the mountains and twice as patient. Hundreds of candles flickered in the gathering darkness, their flames dancing despite the still air. White petals carpeted the ground, released from baskets by young pack members who sang traditional songs in voices high and pure. It should have been beautiful. It was beautiful. And Nova had never been more terrified in her life. Hold still, Mira whispered, adjusting the silver dress one final time. They stood at the edge of the clearing with the other unmated wolves, mostly young women, a few young men, all groomed and perfumed and trembling with anticipation. Vivienne stood 3 feet away, draped in white silk that probably cost more than Nova earned in a year. She caught Nova's eye and smiled, sharp and knowing. I heard Beta Rowan had his claiming mark prepared, Vivienne said loudly enough for everyone to hear. A silver collar, I believe. How appropriate for an Omega, the nearby wolves tittered. Nova forced herself to breathe, to stay calm. Just a little longer. Once the beggar arrived, once she kissed him in front of everyone, it would be done. She would be safe. If he arrived, what if he didn't come? What if he'd taken one look at the Crescent Moon Pack's territory and decided a warm meal wasn't worth the trouble? What if? The Alphas approach, someone called out. The crowd parted like water. Alpha Donovan Thorne strode into the circle, first Nova's father, though he'd barely acknowledged her existence since her wolf failed to emerge. He was a powerful man, still strong despite his 50 years, with the same dark hair Nova had inherited and eyes like winter storms. Cold, distant, disappointed. Behind him came the other high-ranking wolves, Beta Rowan among them. Nova's stomach turned to ice. Rowan was exactly as she remembered, thick-bodied, with cruel eyes and a mouth that seemed permanently set in a sneer. His gaze found her immediately, and he smiled. It was not a kind smile. My daughter. Alpha Donovan's voice boomed across the clearing, magically amplified. Unmated wolves of the Crescent Moon Pack. Tonight, under the blessing of the Luna herself, we gather to honor the oldest of our traditions, the claiming, the bonding, the recognition of fated mates. The pack howled their approval, the sound raising goosebumps on Nova's arms. When the moon reaches its peak, Donovan continued, any unmated alpha or high-ranking wolf may step forward to claim their chosen mate. The Luna ceremony bond is sacred, unbreakable, blessed by the moon goddess herself. Once claimed, the bond cannot be refused. Nova's hands clenched in the silver silk of her dress. Where was he? Where was the beggar? However, her father's voice took on a warning tone. There is one ancient right that supersedes even an alpha's claim. The right of first choice. If an unmated wolf has already chosen their mate, if they have already marked their selection before the ceremony's peak, then no other may challenge that bond. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The right of first choice was rarely invoked. It was considered almost shamefully desperate, a way for weak wolves to avoid more powerful mates, which was exactly why Nova was going to use it. Let the ceremony begin. Donovan raised his arms to the rising moon. Let fate reveal itself. The moon cleared the trees, full and enormous, bathing the stone circle in silver light. Magic crackled through the air like lightning before a storm. This was it, the moment when claims would be made. Beta Rowan stepped forward. No, Nova whispered. I, Beta Rowan of the Crescent Moon Pack, his voice carried across the sudden silence. Invoke my right of claim. I choose. I invoke the right of first choice. Nova's voice rang out before she could second-guess herself. Every head turned toward her. The magic in the air seemed to pause, waiting. Her father's face darkened with rage. Nova, what is the meaning of, I invoke the right of first choice, she repeated, louder this time. Her legs trembled, but she forced herself to walk forward, into the center of the circle. I have already chosen my mate. Before this ceremony began, before any claim could be made, I made my selection. Vivienne laughed, the sound like breaking glass. You? An Omega? Who would possibly? I would. The voice came from the edge of the clearing, and the beggar stepped into the candlelight. The crowd's reaction was immediate gasps of horror, sounds of disgust. He looked even worse under the ceremony's magic-enhanced lighting. The grime on his face seemed darker, his rags more tattered. He moved with a shuffling gait, head down, shoulders hunched. Perfect. This? Beta Rowan's face twisted with contempt. This is your choice? A filthy vagrant? He is my choice, Nova said firmly, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. As is my right. She walked toward the beggar, aware of every eye upon her. The whispers started: shock, disgust, pity. Someone laughed. Someone else made a gagging sound. Nova ignored them all. The beggar raised his head as she approached. Those amber eyes met hers, and for just a moment, she saw something in them that wasn't defeat or desperation, something that looked almost like amusement? No. It had to be the candlelight playing tricks. Are you certain? The beggar asked quietly, his rough voice barely audible over the crowd's murmurs. Once done, this cannot be undone. I'm certain, Nova said. Then I accept your choice, Nova Thorne. The way he said her name sent a shiver down her spine. But there was no time to analyze it. Beta Rowan was already moving forward, his face mottled with rage. This is an outrage. Alpha Donovan, your daughter cannot seriously expect. The right of first choice is sacred, Nova said, her voice cutting through his protest. Once invoked, once accepted, the bond is as unbreakable as any alpha's claim. You taught me that yourself, Beta Rowan. In all your lessons about pack law, her father's face had gone from red to white. Nova, think about what you're doing. Think about your future. You would throw away any chance of a proper mate for this. This, for my freedom, Nova said quietly. Yes, father, I would. The silence that followed was absolute. Then the beggar spoke. The ritual must be completed. For the right of first choice to be recognized, there must be a public claiming. A kiss, witnessed by the pack, under the full moon's light. He was right. That was the final piece. That was what would seal the bond and make it unbreakable. Nova stepped closer. The beggar smelled of dirt and sweat and something else, something wild and clean underneath, like pine forests after rain. He towered over her, even hunched as he was. I'm sorry, she whispered, so only he could hear. I'm sorry for using you like this. Don't be, he murmured back. And was that amusement in his voice again? I'm not. Before she could question it, before she could think too hard about what she was doing, Nova rose on her toes, wrapped her hand around the back of his neck, and pulled him down to her. Their lips met, and the world exploded. Power surged through her like lightning, like fire, like the moon itself had reached down and touched her soul. Her wolf that had never existed, that had never answered her calls, suddenly roared to life inside her chest, not emerging, not shifting, but present in a way she'd never felt before. And it wasn't just her wolf. She felt his wolf too. Ancient, powerful, enormous beyond comprehension. Alpha. Not just any alpha. Something more. Something that made Alpha Donovan's wolf feel like a puppy in comparison. Nova's eyes snapped open. She tried to pull back, but the beggar's hand came up to cup her face, and his hand was clean. The grime was gone from his palm, revealing calloused skin marked with silver scars that looked like claw marks from ancient battles. "What?" she gasped against his lips. "Shh," he murmured. "Not yet. The bond must complete." Magic swirled around them, visible now as threads of silver and gold light. The pack was shouting something, but Nova couldn't hear over the roaring in her ears. The beggar's other hand rose to her face, cradling it gently, and she felt the last of the bond snap into place. Unbreakable. Eternal. Absolute. The beggar, no, not a beggar. Something in Nova's newly awakened instincts screamed, pulled back. His amber eyes glowed in the moonlight, and slowly, deliberately, he reached up and wiped the grime from his face. The dirt came away like stage makeup. Beneath it was a face carved from stone and shadow, sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw marked with silver scars. Dark hair that wasn't matted at all, just artfully mussed. And those eyes, those burning amber eyes that now blazed with power and something that looked like triumph. "Hello, little wolf," he said softly. "Did you really think I was a beggar?" The crowd had gone silent. Someone whimpered. Mira's voice, shaking. That's impossible." And then her father spoke, his voice hollow with shock and what might have been fear. "Theron Blackfang. The Alpha King of the Northern Territories." Nova's world tilted sideways. No, that wasn't possible. The Alpha King was a legend, a monster story used to frighten children. He was said to be ancient, powerful, cruel beyond measure. He commanded 5 territories and had never taken a mate. He certainly wouldn't disguise himself as a beggar in a random market. He certainly wouldn't accept a kiss from a worthless Omega. "Surprise," Theron Blackfang said, his lips curving into a smile that was all predator. "It seems, Nova Thorn, that you've just claimed the most powerful alpha in 5 territories. I do hope you're prepared for the consequences." His hand was still cradling her face. The bond hummed between them, unbreakable and absolute, and Nova realized with crystal clarity that she'd just escaped one cage only to lock herself into another, one that was far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Chapter 4. The Alpha King's Game. The chaos erupted slowly, like a storm building on the horizon. First came the silence absolute, suffocating silence as every wolf in the Crescent Moon Pack processed what they'd just witnessed. Then came the whispers, rising like wind through dead leaves. Then came the panic. "Everyone on your knees," Beta Rowan's voice cracked like a whip. "On your knees before the Alpha King." The pack dropped as one, foreheads pressed to the petal-strewn ground. Even Alpha Donovan Nova's father, the man who'd ruled this territory for 30 years, sank to one knee, his head bowed. Only Nova remained standing, frozen in Theron Blackfang's grip. "Let go of me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "No." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, a gesture that might have been tender if his eyes weren't gleaming with dark amusement. "You claimed me, little wolf. You kissed me in front of your entire pack and invoked the right of first choice. The bond is sealed. You don't get to run from it now. You lied." Anger cut through her shock, hot and sharp. "You deceived me. You let me think." "I let you make your own choice," Theron interrupted smoothly. "You chose a beggar, yes, but you chose of your own free will. The bond doesn't care about identities or disguises. It only cares about choice and acceptance." His smile widened. "And you, Nova Thorn, chose me. Rise," Theron called out to the prostrate pack, his voice carrying effortlessly across the ceremony grounds. The authority in it made Nova's newly awakened wolf want to submit, to bare her throat, to acknowledge his dominance. She gritted her teeth and forced the instinct down. The pack rose slowly, cautiously. Nova could see her father's face pale with shock, eyes darting between her and Theron as if trying to solve an impossible equation. "Alpha King Theron." Donovan's voice was carefully controlled, diplomatic. "We had no idea you were in our territory. If we had known, we would have prepared a proper welcome. Our pack house, our resources, Everything we have is at your disposal. I didn't want a proper welcome, Theron said, finally releasing Nova's face but keeping one hand wrapped loosely around her wrist. The touch was light, but she could feel the leashed strength in it. I came to observe the Luna ceremony. I've heard interesting things about the Crescent Moon Pack's traditions. His eyes swept over the crowd, and several wolves flinched under that amber gaze. Interesting things, he repeated softly, about how you treat your omegas. The temperature in the clearing seemed to drop 10 degrees. Vivienne, who'd been frozen in her white silk dress, suddenly found her voice. Alpha King, surely you don't mean to honor this farce of a bond? She's an omega. Wolfless. She tricked you into, are you questioning my judgment? Theron's voice was silk over steel. Are you suggesting that I, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, was outsmarted by a 19-year-old omega? Vivienne's face went white. No, I didn't mean, because if I was outsmarted, Theron continued conversationally, that would make me rather stupid, wouldn't it? And if I'm that stupid, perhaps I shouldn't be Alpha King at all. Perhaps you'd like to challenge me for the title? The offer hung in the air like a blade. No, Alpha King, Vivienne whispered, her eyes on the ground. I would never. That's what I thought. Theron's attention shifted back to Donovan. Alpha Thorn. Your daughter has claimed me under the right of first choice. The bond is sealed and recognized by the moon goddess herself. I assume you have no objection? It wasn't really a question. Donovan's jaw worked silently for a moment. Nova could see the calculations running behind his eyes, political implications, territorial concerns, the sheer impossibility of refusing an Alpha King who'd just been bonded to his daughter. No objection, he finally said. The right of first choice is sacred. If Nova has chosen you, and you have accepted, then the bond is blessed. The words clearly tasted like ash in his mouth. Excellent. Theron's smile was all teeth. Then we'll be leaving immediately. I have matters to attend to in my own territory, and I'm sure my new mate is eager to see her new home. Wait, Nova found her voice, pulling against his grip on her wrist. I'm not going anywhere with you. Bond or no bond. You can't just, can't I? Theron turned to face her fully, and the force of his presence hit her like a physical blow. This close, without the beggar's disguise, he was devastating, not handsome in any conventional sense, but powerful in a way that made handsome seem irrelevant. You invoked an ancient right, little wolf. You claimed me as your mate before your entire pack. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? I thought I was claiming a beggar. Nova's voice rose despite her efforts to control it. I thought I was choosing someone powerless, someone who would take my offer of food and shelter and leave me alone afterward. I never meant to bind yourself to the most powerful alpha in 5 territories? Theron's eyebrows rose. No, I imagine you didn't. But intentions don't break bonds. Actions do. And your actions tonight sealed your fate to mine. He leaned closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. I could have refused, you know. When you proposed this scheme in the market, I could have said no. But I didn't. Do you want to know why? Nova's throat was dry. Why? Because I've been looking for you for a very long time, Nova Thorn. And when you walked up to me in that market, when you offered me exactly what I needed, a legitimate bond, publicly witnessed, unbreakable by any law or tradition, I knew the moon goddess had finally answered my prayers. Ice flooded Nova's veins. What are you talking about? You don't even know me. Don't I? His smile was enigmatic. We'll discuss it later. Right now, we have an audience, and I'd rather not air all our secrets in front of your pack. He raised his voice again, addressing Donovan. Alpha Thorn, I'll send representatives to negotiate the formal alliance between our territories. Consider this bonding a diplomatic merger. Of course, Alpha King, Donovan said quickly. Too quickly. He was already calculating how to profit from this. Nova realized with a sick feeling. His worthless Omega daughter had accidentally become his ticket to the most powerful alliance in the region. Father, Nova said, hating the pleading note in her voice. Don't let him. Nova. Her father's eyes were cold as winter ice. You made your choice. You invoked the right of first choice in front of the entire pack. You claimed the Alpha King as your mate. There is no going back from that. You will go with him, you will honor the bond, and you will bring honor to this pack for once in your worthless life. The words hit her like physical blows. Mira stepped forward from the crowd, her face streaked with tears. Please, Alpha King. She didn't know. She was desperate. Beta Rowan was going to claim her against her will? Theron's voice went dangerously soft. Is that what you were going to say? Mira froze, realizing she'd just implicated Beta Rowan in something very close to abuse of power. Theron's gaze swung to Rowan, who'd gone very pale. Is this true, Beta? Were you planning to use the Luna ceremony to claim a 19-year-old Omega who clearly didn't want you? The bond would have been legal, Rowan stammered. The ceremony allows claiming, Theron said coldly. It doesn't allow coercion. There's a difference. He looked back at Nova, and something shifted in his expression. So that's why you did it. You weren't just being rebellious. You were protecting yourself. Nova said nothing. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of confirmation. Well then, Theron said quietly. I suppose I should thank Beta Rowan. If he hadn't been such a predatory bastard, you never would have walked into that market. You never would have found me. And we never would have. He gestured to the golden threads of the bond that still shimmered faintly in the air between them, visible only to those with enough power to see magic itself. This changes things, he said, almost to himself. Then he shook his head, as if clearing it, and his commanding voice returned. Gather your belongings, Nova. We leave in 10 minutes. I don't have belongings, Nova said bitterly. Omegas don't own anything worth taking. Something flickered across Theron's face, anger, maybe, or disgust. Then we leave now. He finally released her wrist, but the loss of contact made the bond ache in her chest. Say your goodbyes quickly. You won't be returning to the Crescent Moon Pack territory for quite some time. I have no one to say goodbye to, Nova said. It was true. Her father had never loved her. Her pack had never accepted her. The only person who'd shown her kindness was Mira, and even that friendship had been conducted in whispers and shadows. She turned to Mira anyway. Thank you, for everything, for being kind when no one else was. Mira grabbed her hands, squeezing tight. Be careful, she whispered. He's the Alpha King. They say he's never lost a battle. They say he's killed hundreds of wolves who challenged him. They say. I know what they say, Nova whispered back. I'll be fine, I have to be. Even as she said it. She wasn't sure she believed it. Theron was watching their exchange with those unsettling amber eyes. When Nova finally stepped away from Mira, he moved beside her with fluid grace. Shall we? He offered his arm like a gentleman, which would have been laughable if the situation weren't so terrifying. Nova ignored the arm and started walking toward the edge of the ceremony grounds. Behind her, she heard Vivienne's voice, shrill with confusion. I don't understand. Why would the Alpha King want a worthless Omega? And Theron's reply, carried on the wind with preternatural clarity. Because, unlike the rest of you, I can see what she actually is. And when she finally stops hiding, when she finally embraces what she was always meant to be, she's going to burn brighter than all of you combined. Nova stumbled but caught herself. What did that mean? What could he possibly see in her that no one else could? She was just an Omega. Wolfless, powerless, plain, wasn't she? The bond hummed in her chest, and her newly awakened wolf stirred uneasily, as if it knew something she didn't. As if it had been waiting for this moment all along. 4 massive wolves emerged from the forest ahead of them. Theron's guards, she realized. They were enormous, each one larger than any wolf in the Crescent Moon Pack, with fur that ranged from midnight black to silver gray. They bowed their heads as Theron approached. We walk from here, Theron said. My territory is 3 hours north. We'll arrive by midnight. I can't shift, Nova said flatly. I don't have a wolf. Yes, you do. Theron's voice was certain. You've had one all along. Your pack just convinced you that you didn't. But I felt her when we kissed. Nova, she's there. She's just been sleeping. That's impossible. Is it? He stopped walking and turned to face her. Then explain why you can feel the bond. Explain why you can sense my wolf. Explain why. Right now, You can hear the heartbeat of every wolf in this forest. Nova opened her mouth to deny it and realized he was right. She could hear them. Dozens of heartbeats, layered over each other like a symphony. She could smell the fear still lingering in the ceremony grounds. She could feel the earth beneath her feet in a way she never had before. "What did you do to me?" she whispered. "I didn't do anything," Theron said. "The bond did. It woke what was already there, what should have woken years ago, if your pack hadn't been." He cut himself off, jaw tightening. "We'll discuss this later. Can you walk 3 hours, or do you need to be carried?" The idea of being carried by him, of being pressed against that powerful chest, wrapped in his scent, completely at his mercy, made something in Nova's stomach flip. "I can walk," she said quickly. "Then let's go." He started forward again. "Stay close. The neutral territories between here and my land aren't safe at night. There are rogues, and worse things. My guards will protect you, but it's easier if you stay within the circle." The 4 massive wolves arranged themselves around them, 2 in front, 2 behind, a protective formation. Nova had no choice but to follow. As they walked into the dark forest, leaving the Crescent Moon Pack territory behind, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking towards something inevitable, something that had been waiting for her since the day she was born. The bond pulsed in her chest like a second heart, and somewhere deep inside, her sleeping wolf opened one golden eye. Chapter 5. The Journey North. The forest was different at night. Nova had lived on the edge of wilderness her entire life, had walked these paths 1,000 times in daylight. But now, with her newly awakened senses, the forest was alive in ways she'd never imagined. She could hear the rustle of mice in the underbrush, the flutter of owl wings overhead, the distant howl of wolves that weren't part of their group, and she could feel Theron beside her, his presence like a controlled wildfire, warm, dangerous, barely contained. They'd been walking for nearly an hour in silence when he finally spoke. "You're afraid of me." It wasn't a question. Nova considered lying, then decided there was no point. "Yes." "Good." His voice held approval. "Fear keeps you cautious. Caution keeps you alive. Is that supposed to be comforting? No, it's supposed to be honest." He glanced at her, his amber eyes catching the moonlight filtering through the trees. "I don't deal in comfort, Nova. I deal in truth. And the truth is that you've bound yourself to someone very dangerous." "But I'm not dangerous to you. How can I believe that? You deceived me. You pretended to be someone you're not." "I pretended to be poor and powerless," Theron corrected. "I never pretended to be safe. And you didn't choose me for safety, you chose me for escape. You got exactly what you asked for." Nova's hands clenched at her sides. "I asked for a beggar who would take my offer and leave me alone, not an alpha king who would drag me to his territory." "Then you should have been more specific in your terms." There was dark amusement in his voice. "Negotiations are tricky things, little wolf. Every loophole matters." One of the wolves ahead of them, the massive black one with silver-tipped ears, huffed what sounded almost like laughter. "Are they laughing at me?" Nova demanded. "Probably," Theron said. "That's Kale, my second in command. He has an unfortunate sense of humor." He raised his voice slightly. "And he's about to volunteer to scout ahead for rogues, isn't he?" The black wolf Kale huffed again, but split off from the group and loped ahead into the darkness. "The others are Darius, Vera, and Nyx," Theron continued, gesturing to the remaining 3 guards. "They're my personal guard. The strongest wolves in my territory, and the most loyal. You can trust them with your life." "But can I trust them more than I trust you?" Nova asked pointedly. Theron smiled. "Probably. They're much nicer than I am." Despite everything, despite her fear and anger and the surreal impossibility of her situation, Nova felt a small, unwilling laugh escape. Theron's expression shifted, something warm flickering across his features. "There. That's the first genuine emotion I've seen from you that wasn't terror or rage. Keep that. You'll need it." "Need it for what?" "For what comes next." His smile faded. "Nova, there's something you need to understand. The bond between us, it's not just a political inconvenience or a mistake you can undo. It's real. It's powerful. And whether you meant to or not, You've just made yourself one of the most important people in 5 territories. I don't want to be important. I just wanted to be free. Freedom is a luxury, Theron said quietly. Power is survival, and you're about to have more power than you ever imagined, whether you want it or not. Before Nova could respond, Kale came bounding back, his massive form barely making a sound as he moved through the underbrush. He shifted mid-stride, fur melting into skin, until a tall man with dark hair and sharp features stood before them, completely unbothered by his nakedness. Rogue pack, 2 miles north, Kale reported. 8 wolves, led by a male named Garrett. They've caught our scent. They're deciding whether to challenge us or let us pass. Theron's expression hardened. How many are fighters? All of them. No young, no weak. It's a raiding pack. Perfect. Theron's voice dripped with sarcasm. We're making excellent time, and I really wanted to deal with territorial rogues tonight. He glanced at Nova. Stay close to Vera and Nyx. Don't run. Don't shift. I told you. I can't shift. And don't engage. Theron continued as if she hadn't spoken. Rogues are unpredictable. Most will back down when they realize who I am. Some won't. The ones who don't back down will die very quickly. The casual way he said it made Nova's blood run cold. You'd kill them just for challenging you? I'd kill them for threatening what's mine. His eyes met hers. And there was nothing human in that gaze, only predator, ancient and absolute. And you, Nova Thorn, are mine now. The bond makes it so, which means anyone who threatens you threatens me. And I don't tolerate threats. Before she could process that, 8 wolves emerged from the shadows ahead. They were ragged things, scarred, lean, with the desperate hunger of rogues who lived outside pack protection. Their leader was the largest, a brown wolf, with 1 torn ear and eyes that gleamed with cunning and cruelty. Theron's 3 remaining guards immediately formed a tighter circle around Nova. She could feel their power radiating outward, a clear warning. The rogue leader shifted, bones cracking and reforming, until a man stood in the wolf's place. He was middle-aged, heavily muscled, with the kind of scars that spoke of many fights and few losses. Well, Garrett's voice was rough as gravel. What do we have here? 4 pretty wolves and a couple of travelers. This is our territory, friends. There's a toll for passage. Your territory? Theron's voice was mild, almost conversational. I wasn't aware the neutral zone had been claimed. Last I checked, neutral meant belonging to no one. Neutral to packs, maybe. But we're not a pack. Garrett's smile was all teeth. We're free wolves. And free wolves take what they want. So here's how this works. You give us whatever supplies you're carrying, plus that pretty thing you're protecting, and we'll let you pass with your lives. The air went very, very still. His name is Garrett? Theron asked Kale quietly. Yes, Alpha King. Good. I like to know the names of wolves before I kill them. It's more personal that way. Garrett's expression flickered with uncertainty. Alpha King? You're not, you can't be. Theron let his power unfurl. It hit like a tsunami. Like the weight of mountains. Like the concentrated force of every dominant wolf Nova had ever encountered, multiplied by 1,000. She staggered under the pressure of it, and she was protected by the bond. The rogue wolves weren't. They collapsed as one, driven to the ground by the sheer force of Theron's dominance. Even Garrett, the leader, was forced to his knees, his body shaking with the effort of not submitting completely. Let me be very clear, Theron said, and his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. That woman you just threatened is my bonded mate. She is under my protection. She carries my mark. He moved forward, and each step seemed to increase the pressure. Now, you have 2 choices. You can apologize for your insult, swear fealty to me, and leave this territory forever. Or you can maintain your pride and die here in the dirt. Garrett's voice was strangled. I didn't know we didn't mean. Choose, Theron said flatly. I submit. Garrett pressed his forehead to the ground. I submit to the Alpha King. Forgive my ignorance. The other 7 rogues followed suit immediately, whimpering their submission. Theron held them there for another long moment, letting them feel the full weight of his power. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the pressure vanished. Go, Theron said. Cross into the Eastern Territories and tell Alpha Serena that Theron Blackfang sent you. Tell her you're seeking asylum. She'll take you in if you're willing to work honestly. If I ever see you in the neutral zone again, I'll kill you where you stand. Understood? Yes, Alpha King, Garrett gasped. Thank you, Alpha King. The rogues fled into the darkness, their forms disappearing so quickly they might have been ghosts. Silence fell over the forest. Nova realized she was shaking. Not from fear, from the aftershock of Theron's power. It had brushed against her through the bond, and even that indirect contact had been overwhelming. What are you? She whispered. Theron turned to look at her, and his eyes were still glowing faintly with power. I'm the Alpha King. I'm the wolf that other wolves have nightmares about. I'm the reason the territories have been at peace for 20 years, because everyone knows that challenging me means death. He took a step closer. And now I'm your mate. Does that terrify you? Yes, Nova said honestly. Good. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture surprisingly gentle after the violence he'd just threatened. Hold on to that fear. Let it sharpen you. Because you're going to need to be sharp for what's coming. What is coming? Questions, challenges. Wolves who will wonder why I chose an Omega when I could have had any she-wolf in 5 territories. His hand dropped away. They won't understand that you're not really an Omega at all, that you're something much more interesting. Stop saying that. Nova's frustration boiled over. I am an Omega. I've been tested. My wolf never emerged. I've lived 19 years as the weakest member of my pack. You can't just decide I'm something else because it fits your narrative. Can't I? Theron's smile was enigmatic. Nova, why do you think your wolf never emerged? Because I'm broken. Because I'm defective. Because you were suppressed, Theron interrupted. Someone in your pack didn't want your wolf to emerge. Someone made sure it stayed dormant. The words hit Nova like cold water. That's impossible. Who would? Why would? That's what we're going to find out. Theron started walking again, and his guards fell into formation. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere the bond can fully settle, and your wolf can finally wake up properly. Nova hurried to catch up, her mind reeling. You keep talking about my wolf like it's real, like it's just sleeping. But I've tried to shift for years. I've done every ritual, every ceremony. Nothing worked. Because you were trying to shift into what you thought you should be, Theron said. You were trying to force an emergence that had been magically blocked, but the bond broke that block. I felt it happen when we kissed. Your wolf is awake now, Nova. You just don't know how to hear her yet. Then help me, Nova said before she could stop herself. If what you're saying is true, if I really do have a wolf, teach me how to reach her. Theron stopped walking and turned to face her fully. For a long moment, he just studied her face, his expression unreadable. All right, he said finally. Close your eyes. What? Close your eyes. Trust me, just this once. Nova hesitated, then obeyed. The darkness behind her eyelids was absolute. Now, Theron's voice was closer, intimate. Stop thinking about shifting. Stop thinking about wolves. Just listen. Listen to your heartbeat. Nova focused on the steady thump-thump in her chest. Good. Now listen deeper. Past your heart, past your lungs, to the place where instinct lives, where wild things sleep. She tried. She focused all her attention inward, searching for something. Anything. At first, there was nothing. Then, a flicker. Like a candle flame in darkness. A presence, ancient and patient, curled up in the depths of her soul. I feel Nova's breath caught. There's something. Don't force it, Theron warned. Just acknowledge it. Let it know you're finally listening. The presence stirred. Nova felt, rather than heard it, a sense of awakening, of recognition. And then, clear as a bell, a voice in her head that was hers but not hers. Finally. I've been waiting so long. Nova's eyes snapped open. She's there. My wolf is there. Theron's smile was triumphant. I told you. Now you just need to learn to work together. And that. He resumed walking. That will take time. training, and patience, all of which you'll have in my territory." Nova touched her chest, feeling the dual heartbeat, now hers and her wolf's, synchronized but distinct. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why does this matter so much to you? Why go through the elaborate disguise, the deception, the everything? You're the Alpha King. You could have any mate you wanted. Why me?" Theron was quiet for so long that Nova thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because 20 years ago, a prophecy was made. A seer told me that my true mate would be born under a blood moon, to a pack that would reject her, with a wolf that would sleep until awakened by a bond forged in desperation and truth." He glanced at her. "You were born under a blood moon, weren't you?" Nova's mouth went dry. "How did you—" "I've been searching for you for 2 decades, Nova. I visited every pack, observed every Luna ceremony, waited for the signs. When I heard about the Crescent Moon Pack's Omega, a girl born under the blood moon 19 years ago, whose wolf never emerged, I knew. I just needed to be sure. So I disguised myself and waited to see what you would do. And I walked right up to you and offered you exactly what you needed," Nova said slowly. "A legitimate bond, public, unbreakable. You did." Theron's voice held something that might have been admiration, which suggests that maybe the moon goddess has a sense of humor after all. They walked in silence for another few minutes. The forest was beginning to thin, the trees growing taller and more ancient. Nova could smell water nearby, a river, cold and clean. "We're crossing into my territory now," Theron said. "Once we cross that river, you'll be under my protection officially. No one can touch you there, not your old pack, not the rogues, not anyone." "Will I be a prisoner?" "No." Theron's answer was immediate. "You'll be my mate, my queen, if you choose to accept that role. You'll have freedom, respect, power, everything your old pack denied you. At what cost?" "At the cost of your anonymity," Theron said honestly. "At the cost of your old life. You can never go back to being invisible, Nova. Everyone will be watching you now, judging you, waiting to see if you're worthy of being the Alpha King's mate. And if I'm not?" Theron stopped at the river's edge. The water rushed past, dark and swift under the moonlight. "Then you'll become worthy. I'll make sure of it." He held out his hand. "Come, let's go home." Nova stared at his hand. This was it, the moment of real choice. Once she crossed that river, there would be no going back. She would be bound to this powerful, dangerous, enigmatic Alpha King for the rest of her life. But what was waiting for her if she refused? Her old pack, Beta Rowan? A life of servitude and abuse? At least with Theron, there was the promise of something more. Even if she didn't trust him, even if she was terrified, at least there was possibility. And her wolf, newly awakened, was urging her forward with a certainty that felt almost like coming home. Nova took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong. "Hold tight," he said. "The current is strong here." Together, they stepped into the water. The cold shocked through her, but Theron's grip never wavered. His guards flanked them, creating a protective barrier against the current. Step by step, they waded across, the water rising to their waists before gradually growing shallower again. And then they were on the other side, dripping and cold but safe. "Welcome," Theron said softly, "to the Northern Territories." Nova looked up and gasped. Before them, rising from the forest like something out of a dream, was a castle. Not a pack house, not a mansion, but an actual castle with towers and battlements and walls that seemed to glow silver in the moonlight. That's where you live?" "Where we live now," Theron corrected. He started forward, pulling her gently along. "Come on. You're freezing, and we still have half a mile to go. There will be hot food, warm clothes, and a bed waiting for you." "A bed?" Nova's exhaustion suddenly hit her all at once. She'd been running on adrenaline for hours, but now that they were safe, the weight of the day crashed down. "Just one bed?" Theron's laugh was low and warm. "Separate rooms, Nova. I'm not a monster. You'll have your own suite, your own space. The bond is sealed, but that doesn't mean you have to share my bed. Not until and unless you're ready." The relief was overwhelming. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Theron said. but there was no cruelty in it. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Tomorrow, you meet my pack. Tomorrow, you start learning what it means to be the Alpha King's mate. But tonight, Nova thought. Tonight she could rest. Tonight, she could try to process the impossible turn her life had taken. Tonight, she could finally breathe. They walked toward the glowing castle, and despite everything, despite her fear and uncertainty, and the bond humming in her chest, Nova felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Chapter 6. The Northern Castle. The castle was even more breathtaking up close. Nova had expected stone and cold, the kind of fortress built for war and defense. Instead, the northern castle was alive with warmth, torches flickering in bronze sconces, tapestries depicting wolves and stars hanging from high walls, and everywhere, the scent of pine and mountain air. Guards lined the entrance, all of them massive wolves in human form, each one dropping into a respectful bow as Theron passed. "Alpha King," they murmured in unison. Their eyes tracked to Nova with barely concealed curiosity. She could feel their questions, their confusion. Why was their Alpha King bringing home a bedraggled, soaking wet girl who looked more like a drowned rat than a queen? Theron seemed unbothered by their stares. "Inform the household staff that my mate has arrived. Prepare the queen's suite. Hot bath, fresh clothes, and a meal. Nothing heavy, she's exhausted, and won't be able to stomach a feast." "Your mate?" One of the guards, a woman with silver hair and sharp green eyes, couldn't quite hide her shock. "Is there a problem, Commander Lyssa?" Theron's voice went dangerously soft. "No, Alpha King." Lyssa's head bowed immediately. "Forgive me. We simply weren't expecting. We had no word that you'd found your mate. That's because I only found her tonight." Theron's hand rested on the small of Nova's back, a gesture that was both possessive and oddly protective. "This is Nova Thorn, formerly of the Crescent Moon Pack. She is now Nova Blackfang, my bonded mate, and your future queen. Anyone who shows her disrespect will answer to me personally." The threat hung in the air like a blade. "Of course, Alpha King," Lyssa said quickly. "Welcome, Lady Nova. The Northern Territories are honored by your presence." The formal words felt surreal. Just hours ago, Nova had been scrubbing floors and dodging insults. Now she was being called Lady and welcomed as a future queen. It was too much. It was all too much. "Theron," Nova's voice came out smaller than she intended. I can't." He understood immediately. "Commander Lyssa, clear the entrance hall. My mate needs space." The guards melted away like shadows, disappearing through side doors with the efficiency of well-trained soldiers. "Better?" Theron asked quietly. Nova nodded, not trusting her voice. "Come on." His hand remained on her back, steady and grounding. "Let's get you somewhere private." He led her through corridors that seemed to stretch forever past grand halls with vaulted ceilings, libraries with shelves reaching toward the sky, training rooms where the scent of sweat and combat lingered. Finally, they climbed a spiral staircase to the castle's third floor. Theron stopped before an ornate door carved with images of wolves and moon phases. "This is yours." He pushed the door open, and Nova stepped into what could only be described as a dream. The queen's suite was massive, larger than the entire servants' quarter in her old pack house. A four-poster bed dominated the center, draped in silver and midnight blue silks. A fireplace crackled with fresh flames, warming the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the forest below, and Nova could see the mountains in the distance, their peaks catching the moonlight. "The bathing room is through there," Theron pointed to a door on the left. "Fresh clothes are in the wardrobe. If you need anything else, pull that cord." He indicated a silver rope near the bed, "and a servant will attend to you immediately." Nova turned to face him, suddenly aware that they were alone, in a bedroom, with a massive bed between them. The bond hummed with awareness. "I should go," Theron said, as if reading her thoughts. "You need rest. Tomorrow will be—" "Why did you really do this?" Nova interrupted. "Don't tell me about prophecies or fate. Tell me the truth. Why go through all of this for someone like me?" Theron was silent for a long moment. Then he moved to the window, staring out at his territory. "Do you know what it's like?" he said quietly. "To be the most powerful wolf in 5 territories and still be completely alone." Nova said nothing, sensing he needed to speak. I've ruled for 30 years, Theron continued. I've fought countless battles, made alliances, kept peace through strength and fear. But I've never had a mate. Every she-wolf who's ever approached me wanted power, not partnership. They saw the crown, not the wolf wearing it. He turned to face her. When the seer told me about the prophecy, I thought it was cruel. A blood moon birth, a rejected wolf. It sounded like I was being punished, forced to wait decades for someone who might not even exist. But you waited anyway. I waited because the alternative was settling for someone who would never truly know me. Someone who would see the Alpha King and never see Theron. His amber eyes held hers. And then tonight, I watched you walk into that market, desperate and terrified, and offer yourself to a complete stranger just to escape a fate you found unbearable. Do you know what that told me? That I'm reckless and stupid? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. That you're brave enough to rewrite your own story. That you'd rather risk everything than accept a life of suffering. That underneath all the abuse and suppression, there's a fire that couldn't be extinguished. He moved closer, and Nova's breath caught. You asked me why I chose you, Theron said. The truth is, you chose me first. You looked at a beggar and saw possibility. You offered kindness to someone who had nothing, and that tells me more about your character than any title or bloodline ever could. I wasn't being kind, Nova admitted. I was being selfish. I used you. We used each other. Theron corrected. You got your escape. I got my mate. That's not selfishness, that's survival. His hand reached up, almost touching her face, then dropped. Now we just have to figure out how to turn survival into something more. Like what? Like partnership. Like trust. Like, he hesitated. Like maybe, eventually, something that resembles love. The word hung between them like a question. I don't know if I can love you, Nova said honestly. I don't even know you. Good. Theron stepped back, putting distance between them. I don't want your love yet. I want your honesty. I want you to learn who I am before you decide what you feel. Can you do that? It was the most reasonable thing he'd said all night. I can try, Nova said. Then that's enough for now. Theron moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Your wolf, the one we woke tonight. Don't try to shift yet. She's still weak, still learning. Give her time to integrate with you before you try to change forms. If you rush it, you could hurt yourself. How long? A few days, maybe a week. You'll know when she's ready. He opened the door. Sleep well, Nova. Tomorrow I'll introduce you to the pack. It won't be easy, but I'll be with you the entire time. He left before she could respond, the door clicking softly shut behind him. Nova stood alone in the massive suite, the events of the night crashing over her like waves. She'd escaped Beta Rowan. She'd bonded with the Alpha King. She'd discovered she had a wolf after 19 years of believing herself broken. And now she was standing in a castle, being called a future queen, while still wearing the damp silver dress she'd worn to what was supposed to be her last Luna ceremony. It was absurd. It was impossible. It was... A knock on the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Lady Nova? A female voice, soft and respectful. I'm Iris, one of the household staff. The Alpha King asked me to help you with your bath and prepare you for sleep. Nova opened the door to find a young woman with kind eyes and brown hair pulled back in a practical braid. I'm not, you don't have to call me lady, Nova said awkwardly. Iris smiled. The Alpha King was very specific about your title. Besides, you're his bonded mate. That makes you lady whether you want it or not. She gestured toward the bathing room. Come on. The water's getting cold, and trust me, after a journey through the neutral territories, you're going to want this bath. The bathing room was as impressive as the bedroom, a massive copper tub already filled with steaming water, herbs floating on the surface that smelled of lavender and something wilder, shelves lined with soaps and oils and soft towels, a chair where Iris had laid out a nightgown in soft gray silk. I'll be just outside if you need anything, Iris said. Take your time. Nova waited until she was alone, then slowly stripped off the damp silver dress. The fabric clung to her skin, and she had to peel it away carefully. Underneath, the silver chains she'd worn for 5 years still circled her wrists. Omega chains. She'd almost forgotten about them. Nova tried to remove them and gasped as power surged through the metal. They weren't just chains. They were spelled, bound to her with magic. No wonder her wolf had never emerged. These chains had been suppressing it the entire time. Anger flooded through her. Who had done this? Who had spelled these chains and locked away her wolf? Her father? Someone in the pack leadership? Or, the thought was interrupted by her wolf's voice, clearer now. Break them. I can't, Nova whispered. They're magical. I don't know how. You do. We do. Together. Nova closed her eyes, reaching for that connection she'd felt in the forest. Her wolf rose to meet her, and for the first time, their power merged. Heat surged through Nova's wrists. The chains began to glow, first silver, then gold, then white-hot. And then, with a sound like breaking crystal, they shattered. Fragments of silver scattered across the stone floor, lifeless and powerless. Nova stared at her bare wrists, at the faint red marks where the chains had rested for 5 years. She felt lighter, stronger, like she'd been carrying weight she hadn't even known was there. Free, her wolf said with satisfaction. Nova climbed into the bath, sinking into water so hot it almost burned. But it felt good, washing away the grime of the journey, the fear of the ceremony, the weight of her old life. She stayed in the water until it cooled, until her fingers pruned and her muscles finally relaxed. When she emerged, she found Iris had left fresh bread, cheese, and water on a tray by the bed. Nova ate quickly, surprised by how hungry she was. Then she crawled into the massive bed, expecting to lie awake for hours, her mind too full of questions and fears to rest. Instead, she fell asleep almost immediately, her wolf curling up contentedly in her chest. And for the first time in years, Nova didn't dream of running. She dreamed of flying. If stories like Nova's remind you that worth can't be destroyed by cruelty, subscribe to join others who believe hidden strength deserves recognition. Far below, in his own chambers, Theron stood at his window and watched the Queen's suite high above. He could feel Nova through the bond, her exhaustion, her confusion, her slowly settling peace, as sleep claimed her. She broke the suppression chains, Kale said from the doorway. We felt the magic break from the entrance hall. She's stronger than you thought. No, Theron said quietly. She's exactly as strong as I thought. She just didn't know it yet. The pack won't accept her easily, Kale warned. An Omega from a weak pack? Even with the bond, there will be challenges. Let them challenge. Theron's voice hardened. She'll surprise them, just like she surprised me. You care about her already? It wasn't a question. Theron didn't answer for a long moment. Then, I care about what she represents. Hope, change, a future that isn't just endless fighting and political maneuvering. And when she learns the whole truth? Kale asked quietly. When she discovers why you really needed a mate? What the prophecy actually said? Then I'll deal with it, Theron said. But right now, let her have this moment of peace. Moon knows she's earned it. Kale left without another word. Theron remained at the window, watching over his sleeping mate, and wondered if he'd just saved her life or damned them both. Only time would tell. Chapter 7. The Pack's Judgment. Morning came too quickly. Nova woke to sunlight streaming through the massive windows and the sound of birdsong outside. For a blissful moment, she forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened. Then the bond pulsed in her chest, a gentle reminder of the Alpha King sleeping somewhere below, and reality crashed back. She sat up, taking in the Queen's suite in daylight. It was even more beautiful than she'd realized. Tapestries depicting ancient wolves hunting beneath full moons, shelves lined with books, a writing desk by the window, and everywhere, the scent of cedar and mountain air. A soft knock interrupted her observations. Lady Nova? Iris's voice came through the door. I've brought breakfast and clothes for today's presentation. Presentation? Nova's stomach nodded. Iris entered carrying a tray laden with food, fresh bread, honey, berries, and some kind of meat pie that smelled divine. Behind her came 2 other servants carrying garments. The Alpha King didn't tell you? Iris set the tray on a small table. This morning, you'll be formally presented to the pack. It's tradition when a new mate is bonded. The entire northern pack will gather to meet you. Nova's appetite vanished. The entire pack? Well, the core pack members. About 300 wolves. Iris must have seen Nova's face pale because she added quickly. It's not as bad as it sounds. You just stand beside the Alpha King, he announces the bond, and everyone acknowledges you. Simple. Simple, Nova repeated hollowly. 300 wolves. 300 powerful northern wolves who would take one look at her and wonder what their Alpha King was thinking. Eat first, Iris said firmly. You'll need your strength. And trust me, facing a pack on an empty stomach is never a good idea. Nova forced herself to eat, while Iris and the other servants prepared the clothes. A dress in deep midnight blue, elegant but not ostentatious, with silver embroidery at the collar and cuffs. Boots of soft leather. A cloak of gray wolf fur that was probably worth more than everything Nova had owned in her entire life. The Alpha King chose these himself, one of the servants said, a young man with friendly eyes. He said you should look like yourself, not like something you're not. The thoughtfulness of it caught Nova off guard. She'd expected something ornate and uncomfortable, designed to make her look like a proper queen. Instead, these clothes were beautiful but practical, something she could move in, fight in if necessary. After breakfast, Iris helped her dress. The fabric was softer than anything Nova had ever worn, molding to her body perfectly. Iris braided her dark hair in a complex pattern that managed to look both elegant and strong. There, Iris stepped back, smiling. You look like a queen. Nova looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The dress brought out the gray of her eyes, made her skin seem less pale and more luminous. The braids gave her face a regal quality she'd never possessed before. But underneath the fine clothes, she was still just Nova. Still the Omega who'd scrubbed floors and worn chains. What if they don't accept me? She whispered. Iris's expression softened. Then they'll learn to. The Alpha King has never been wrong about anything important. If he chose you, there's a reason. Another knock. This one more commanding. Lady Nova. Commander Lissa's voice. The Alpha King requests your presence in the Great Hall. This was it. Nova took a deep breath, touched the place in her chest where her wolf rested. We can do this, her wolf assured her, and walked toward the door. Lissa waited in the corridor, her silver hair gleaming in the morning light. Her green eyes assessed Nova with the sharp gaze of a warrior. The pack is gathering, Lissa said without preamble. The Alpha King is already in the Great Hall. I'm to escort you to the presentation platform. She paused. A word of advice, Lady Nova. Don't show fear. Northern wolves respect strength. If you walk in there, looking terrified, they'll tear you apart, maybe not physically, but definitely politically. That's comforting, Nova said dryly. The corner of Lissa's mouth twitched. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to prepare you. This pack has been waiting 30 years for their Alpha King to take a mate. They have expectations. You won't meet those expectations, no one could. So instead of trying to be what they expect, be something they don't expect. Be yourself. It was surprisingly good advice. Nova followed Lissa through the castle's corridors. As they walked, she could hear the gathering hundreds of voices echoing through stone halls, the shuffle of feet, the barely contained energy of wolves waiting for something significant. They stopped before two massive doors carved with the image of a wolf howling at the moon. Ready? Lissa asked. No, Nova said honestly. But I don't think I ever will be, so let's do this anyway. Lissa's expression held something that might have been approval. Good answer. The doors swung open. The Great Hall was enormous, a cathedral of stone and wood, with massive pillars supporting a ceiling that seemed to reach the sky. Tapestries hung from every wall, depicting battles and hunts and celebrations, and everywhere. Wolves. They filled the hall, standing in organized rows by rank and position. Warriors in the front, their bodies scarred and powerful. Healers and scholars in the middle, their eyes sharp with intelligence. Younger wolves toward the back, their energy barely contained. And at the far end, on a raised platform beneath a massive stained glass window depicting the moon in all its phases, stood Theron. He wore black, simple but elegant, with silver accents that caught the light. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing the sharp lines of his face, and those burning amber eyes. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge, and every wolf in the hall instinctively recognized their king. His eyes found Nova immediately, and the bond flared between them. "Walk to me," his voice came through the bond, surprising her. "Don't run. Don't hesitate. Walk like you own this hall." Nova took a breath and started forward. The crowd parted, creating a path directly to the platform. Hundreds of eyes tracked her movement, assessing, judging, questioning. She could feel their doubt, their confusion, their barely concealed contempt. "An Omega?" she heard someone whisper. "He chose an Omega? She's so plain. What does he see in her? This has to be a mistake." The Alpha King wouldn't. Nova lifted her chin and kept walking. 1 step, 2, 3, each step feeling like a mile. But she didn't falter, didn't show the fear that churned in her stomach. Finally, she reached the platform. Theron extended his hand, and she took it, letting him pull her up beside him. "You're trembling," he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. "I'm terrified," she whispered back. "Good, use it." His hand squeezed hers. "Ready?" "No." "Perfect." He turned to face the assembled pack, and his voice rang out with absolute authority. "Wolves of the Northern Territories, I present to you Nova Blackfang, my bonded mate and your future Luna Queen." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, starting with Kale and Lissa at the front, the wolves knelt. Row by row, they sank to one knee, heads bowed in acknowledgement of their future queen. But Nova could feel their resistance. Their submission was to Theron, not to her. They knelt because their Alpha King commanded it, not because they accepted her. The bond was sealed last night. Theron continued, "Under the full moon at the Crescent Moon Pack's Luna ceremony. It is recognized by the moon goddess herself and cannot be broken or challenged." A wolf in the third row, a massive male with gray fur and cold blue eyes, stood abruptly. "Alpha King, I mean no disrespect, but we have questions." "Speak, Beta Aldrich," Theron said, his voice neutral. Aldrich stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Nova with barely concealed disdain. "We were told you would choose a mate when you found one worthy of the Northern Territories. A strong she-wolf who could stand beside you in battle, who could lead alongside you, who could bear powerful heirs." He gestured to Nova. "This girl is an Omega from a weak pack. She has no wolf, no power, no battle experience. How can she possibly be your mate?" The crowd murmured agreement. Nova felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. Everything Aldrich said was true or had been true until last night. But how could she explain about the chains, about her wolf finally waking, about any of it? "Are you questioning my judgment, Beta Aldrich?" Theron's voice went dangerously soft. "I'm questioning the wisdom of bonding with someone so clearly beneath." Careful. The single word carried enough threat to make Aldrich stop mid-sentence. "You're very close to insulting my mate, and insulting my mate is insulting me. I simply want to understand," Aldrich said, but his tone was challenging. "Show us, let her shift, let us see her wolf, prove to us that she's worthy of standing beside the Alpha King." The crowd's murmuring grew louder, more insistent. They wanted proof. They wanted to see that Nova was more than she appeared. "She cannot shift yet," Theron said flatly. "Her wolf is newly awakened and still integrating. Forcing a shift now would be dangerous." "Convenient," someone muttered. "Or perhaps there is no wolf," Aldrich pressed. "Perhaps the Alpha King has been deceived." "Enough," Nova's voice rang out before she could stop herself. The anger that had been building finally boiled over. "You want proof? You want to see if I'm worthy?" Theron's hand tightened on hers in warning, but Nova pulled away, stepping forward to face Aldrich directly. "I am Nova Blackfang," she said, her voice carrying across the silent hall. "And you're right, I was an Omega. I was the weakest member of my pack, the one everyone mocked and abused. I wore silver chains for 5 years that suppressed my wolf and kept me powerless." She held up her wrists, showing the faint red marks. "But last night, I broke those chains. Last night, my wolf woke for the first time in 19 years. And yes, she's still weak. Yes, I'm still learning, but I am not nothing." She met Aldrich's cold gaze. "I survived 19 years of cruelty and rejection. I made a choice to save myself when no one else would. And I bonded with your Alpha King through my own desperate courage, not through politics or power plays. The hall was absolutely silent now. So you can question my strength, Nova continued. You can doubt my worth. You can think I'm beneath the Northern Territories. But don't you dare suggest that I deceived anyone. I chose this bond. I claimed the Alpha King when I thought he was a beggar, which means I saw worth where everyone else saw nothing. Maybe that's exactly the kind of Luna you need, one who looks deeper than surface power. She turned back to Theron, her heart hammering. She'd just challenged a beta in front of the entire pack. She'd just made a speech that was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Theron was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face, not the polite smile he'd worn before, but something genuine and almost proud. There, he said softly. So only she could hear. Now they see it. He raised his voice to the crowd. My mate has spoken. And she's right, she is exactly what this pack needs. Someone who doesn't rely on inherited power or political connections. Someone who survives through courage and wit, and sheer stubborn determination. His eyes swept over the assembled wolves. Anyone else have questions? The silence stretched. Then Kale stepped forward, and to Nova's surprise, he smiled. Welcome to the Northern Territories, Luna Nova. May your reign be long and your enemies short-lived. Lissa followed, dropping to one knee again, but this time, the gesture felt different, more genuine. I pledge my sword and my loyalty, Luna Nova. One by one, wolves throughout the hall began to kneel again. Not all of them. Aldrich remained standing, his expression dark but more than before. And this time, Nova felt the difference. This time, some of them were kneeling for her, not just for Theron. The presentation is complete, Theron announced. Tonight, we feast to celebrate the bonding. Until then, return to your duties. And remember, Luna Nova is under my protection. Anyone who threatens or insults her will answer to me personally. The crowd began to disperse, wolves filing out of the great hall in organized groups. Nova stood frozen on the platform, trying to process what had just happened. That, Theron said quietly, was either the bravest or most reckless thing you've ever done. I'm not sure which, Nova admitted. Both, probably. He studied her face. You didn't need to defend yourself. I would have handled Aldrich. I know, but if I let you fight every battle for me, they'll never respect me. They'll just see me as the weak mate hiding behind the powerful Alpha King. Theron's smile returned. You're learning quickly. He offered his arm. Come on, you need rest before tonight's feast. And I need to have a conversation with Beta Aldrich about appropriate behavior. Don't kill him on my account, Nova said, only half joking. I won't kill him. Theron's voice held dark amusement. But I will make sure he understands exactly what happens to wolves who disrespect my mate. They walked out of the great hall together, the bond humming between them with something that felt almost like partnership. Maybe, Nova thought, this could actually work. Maybe she could survive being the Alpha King's mate. Maybe she could even thrive. Behind them, Aldrich watched them leave with cold calculation in his eyes. He'd seen something in Nova's speech that worried him. Fire. Strength. Potential. And that, more than anything, made her dangerous. Chapter 8. Shadows and Secrets. The feast that evening was unlike anything Nova had ever experienced. The great hall had been transformed, long tables laden with roasted meats, fresh bread, fruits, and delicacies she couldn't even name. Candles flickered everywhere, casting warm light across the assembled wolves. Music played from somewhere, drums and strings creating a rhythm that made her wolf stir restlessly. Nova sat beside Theron at the high table, acutely aware of every eye still watching her, still judging. The midnight blue dress had been replaced with something more formal, deep silver that shimmered like moonlight, with a neckline that revealed the bond mark on her collarbone. Theron had marked her just before the feast, a formal claiming bite that sealed their bond visibly for all to see. It still throbbed with a pleasant ache. You're not eating, Theron murmured beside her. I'm not hungry. Nova pushed food around her plate. I'm too aware that half this room still thinks I'm a mistake. Only half? Theron's eyes glinted with dark humor. You're winning them over faster than I expected. Below them, wolves danced and drank and celebrated. The atmosphere should have been joyful, but Nova couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. A tension in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Tell me about Aldrich," she said quietly. Theron's expression hardened. "He's my beta. Strong, intelligent, and ambitious. He's served me well for 15 years, but—" He hesitated. But he expected to have more influence over my choice of mate. He had a daughter, Serena. Beautiful, powerful, trained as a warrior. He's been positioning her as a potential Luna for years. Understanding dawned. And then I showed up and ruined his plans. Exactly. Theron's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. "Don't underestimate him, Nova. Aldrich is dangerous when his ambitions are thwarted. Watch yourself around him." Before Nova could respond, a commotion at the far end of the hall drew their attention. A she-wolf was approaching, tall and stunning, with silver blonde hair and ice-blue eyes. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been denied anything, her body powerful and graceful in a dress that left little to the imagination. "Serena," Theron said under his breath. "This should be interesting." Serena stopped before the high table and offered a bow that was technically respectful but somehow managed to convey contempt. "Alpha King, Lady Nova." Her voice was honey over steel. "I wanted to offer my congratulations on your bonding." "Thank you, Serena," Theron said neutrally. Serena's gaze fixed on Nova, assessing her the way a predator assesses prey. "I must admit, I'm curious. What did you do to capture the Alpha King's attention? There must be some special quality we're all missing." The insult was veiled but clear. Nova felt her temper rise, but Theron's hand tightened on hers in warning. "I didn't do anything," Nova said calmly. "The bond chose us. That's how mate bonds work. They're not about strategy or manipulation. They're about recognition." "Recognition," Serena repeated, her smile sharp. "How romantic. Though I wonder what the Alpha King recognized in an Omega who can't even shift." "Serena," Theron's voice carried a clear warning. "You're very close to insulting my mate. I would never, Alpha King." Serena's expression remained innocent. "I'm simply expressing concern. The Northern Territories face many threats. We need a Luna who can fight, who can lead warriors into battle, who can falk plays, who can survive 19 years of abuse, and still have the courage to rewrite her own fate." Theron interrupted. "Who can see worth where others see nothing? Who can challenge a beta in front of 300 wolves without flinching?" His amber eyes burned. "I know exactly what kind of Luna I need, Serena. And I found her." Serena's composure cracked for just a moment, fury flashing across her face. Then she smoothed it away, bowing again. "Of course, Alpha King, forgive my concern. I only want what's best for our territories." She left, but not before shooting Nova a look of pure hatred. "That was a declaration of war," Kale said from Theron's other side. He'd been so quiet Nova had almost forgotten he was there. "Serena doesn't lose gracefully. Then she'll need to learn," Theron said flatly. "Nova is my mate. That's not negotiable. The question is," Lissa leaned forward from her seat, "what will Serena and Aldrich do about it? They've been planning for years. They won't give up easily." "Let them try," Theron said. "They'll discover that I don't respond well to threats." Nova felt a chill run down her spine. She'd escaped one dangerous situation only to land in another, this time involving political intrigue and powerful wolves who saw her as an obstacle to be removed. "We're stronger than they think," her wolf growled in her mind. "Are we?" Nova thought back. "We will be." The feast continued, but Nova's enjoyment was gone. She could feel eyes on her constantly, some curious, some hostile, all assessing. Every conversation seemed to have a hidden meaning, every smile a potential threat. Finally, as the night grew late and the celebration showed no signs of ending, Theron leaned close. "You're exhausted. Go rest." "I'll make your excuses. Won't that make me look weak?" Nova asked. "Leaving early? It'll make you look sensible. You've been through more in 2 days than most wolves experience in a lifetime. No one will fault you for needing rest." He stood, drawing the hall's attention. "My mate is retiring for the evening. The celebration will continue, but I expect everyone to show proper respect. It wasn't a request." Lissa appeared at Nova's side immediately. "I'll escort you, Luna." They left the great hall together, the noise of the feast fading behind them. The castle's corridors were quieter at night, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on stone walls. "That went better than I expected," Lissa said as they walked. "Really? Because it felt like half the pack wants me dead." "Only a quarter, actually." Lissa's tone was matter of fact. "The rest are waiting to see what you do. You surprised them today with your speech. They expected a timid Omega. You gave them fire instead. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it." Lissa stopped outside the Queen's suite. "A word of advice, Luna. Don't trust Serena or her father. They're dangerous. And they have allies throughout the pack. Watch your back. That's the second time today someone's warned me about them. Then take the warning seriously." Lissa's green eyes were intense. "The Northern Territories may seem peaceful, but there are always wolves plotting in the shadows. You're a threat to Aldrich's ambitions, which makes you a target. Be careful." She left before Nova could respond. Nova entered her suite, exhaustion finally crashing over her. Iris had left fresh nightclothes and turned down the bed. The fire crackled warmly in the hearth, but sleep wouldn't come. Nova stood at the window, staring out at the moonlit forest, her mind racing. 2 days ago, she'd been scrubbing floors and wearing chains. Now she was a Luna queen with enemies she didn't fully understand, and a mate bond she hadn't asked for. The bond pulsed, and she felt Theron's presence, even though he was still in the Great Hall. She could sense his power, his focus, the way he commanded the room effortlessly. "What have I gotten myself into?" she thought. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Lady Nova?" A male voice, unfamiliar. "I have a message from the Alpha King." Nova opened the door to find a young wolf she didn't recognize, sandy hair, nervous eyes, wearing the colors of the household staff. "What message?" she asked. "The Alpha King requests your presence in his study. He says it's urgent, something you need to see." Nova hesitated. It was late, and something about this felt off. "Why didn't he tell me himself before I left?" "It just arrived, Luna. A report from the border. He said you should come immediately." The bond should have let her sense if Theron needed her, but she was still learning how it worked. Maybe she'd missed something. "All right," she said. "Lead the way." The young wolf led her through corridors she hadn't seen before, deeper into the castle. The torches were spaced farther apart here, the shadows thicker. "Where exactly is the study?" Nova asked as they turned down another unfamiliar hallway. "Just ahead, Luna. Through that door." He pointed to a heavy wooden door at the corridor's end. Something about it made Nova's skin prickle with unease. "Don't," her wolf suddenly warned. "Danger." Nova stopped walking. "Actually, I should check with the Alpha King through the bond first." The young wolf's friendly expression vanished. Too late for that. He lunged. Nova barely dodged, her newly awakened instincts screaming warnings. The wolf's claws raked across her arm, drawing blood. Pain exploded through her, but adrenaline kicked in immediately. "Help!" she screamed. "Someone help. No one can hear you down here," the wolf snarled, circling. "These corridors are spelled for silence. By the time anyone realizes you're missing, it'll be too late." "Shift," her wolf commanded. "I can't," Nova thought frantically. "I don't know how." "Then learn." The attacker lunged again. Nova threw herself sideways, crashing into the stone wall. Her vision blurred with pain and fear, but underneath the fear, something else was rising. Power, heat, her wolf surging upward with desperate strength. "Let me out," her wolf roared. "Let me protect us." Nova felt her bones begin to crack and shift. Agony ripped through her body as her wolf tried to force an emergence she wasn't ready for. The attacker saw what was happening and laughed. "First shift in the middle of an attack? You'll tear yourself apart before you complete it. Whoever hired me to kill you did me a favor. You're making this easy." Through the pain, Nova's mind latched onto those words. Hired. Someone had paid this wolf to kill her. Serena? Aldrich? Did it matter? She was going to die either way if she couldn't. The door at the end of the corridor exploded inward. Theron stood in the wreckage, and the power radiating from him was apocalyptic. His eyes glowed pure gold, his body vibrating with barely controlled rage. "Get away from my mate." Each word hit like a physical blow. The attacker stumbled backward, terror replacing his confidence. "Alpha King, she was. I can smell her blood." Theron's voice was barely human. "You hurt her. I was hired. Someone paid me. I'll tell you who." He never finished the sentence. Theron moved faster than Nova's eyes could follow. One moment he was across the corridor. The next, his hand was around the attacker's throat, lifting him off the ground. "You hurt my mate," Theron repeated softly. "There is no price, no threat, no force in this world that makes that forgivable." The attacker's neck snapped with a sound like breaking branches. Theron dropped the body and was at Nova's side immediately, his hands gentle despite the violence he'd just committed. "Are you hurt?" "Let me see." "My arm," Nova gasped. The partial shift had stopped, her bones settling back into human form, but the pain was still intense. "He clawed me. And Theron? He said someone hired him." "I know." Theron's face was grim as he examined her wound. "I felt your fear through the bond. Someone tried to trap you in spelled corridors where I couldn't sense you properly." His hands glowed with soft, golden light as he touched her injury, and Nova felt the pain begin to ease. "Basic healing. It'll hold until we get you to our proper healers." Footsteps pounded toward them. Kale, Lissa, and a dozen guards appearing from multiple directions. "Luna Nova." Lissa's eyes widened at the blood. "What happened?" "Someone tried to assassinate my mate on her second night in this castle," Theron said, his voice deadly calm. "Take that body to the dungeons. I want to know everything about him, who his family is, who his friends are, every conversation he's had in the last month. Someone hired him, and I will find out who." "Alpha King," Kale said carefully. "The implications." "I know the implications." Theron lifted Nova effortlessly into his arms. "Someone in my own pack just tried to murder the Luna Queen, which means we have a traitor." His eyes swept over his guards. "Lock down the castle. No one enters or leaves until we find out who ordered this." He carried Nova through the corridors, moving with the fluid grace of a predator despite her weight in his arms. She could feel his fury through the bond, cold, controlled, absolutely lethal. "I should have been more careful," Nova whispered. "I should have known it was a trap." "You're 2 days into being a Luna," Theron said. "You're still learning. This isn't your fault, it's the fault of whoever sent that assassin." His arms tightened around her. "And I promise you, Nova, they will pay. I will make them beg for death before I'm done." The cold certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel protected. Safe. Like maybe, despite everything, she'd found someone who would actually fight for her instead of abandoning her when things got difficult. The bond hummed between them, and for the first time, Nova wondered if it wasn't a cage after all. Maybe it was armor. Chapter 9. Broken Trust. The healing chambers were bathed in soft amber light from dozens of candles infused with medicinal herbs. Nova sat on a padded table while an elderly she-wolf named Mara examined her injuries with gentle, practiced hands. "The wound is clean," Mara said, her voice weathered but kind. "No poison. Thank the moon goddess. Alpha King, your healing took care of the worst of it. I'll just apply a salve to speed the recovery and prevent scarring." Theron stood against the wall, arms crossed, watching Nova with an intensity that made her feel simultaneously protected and exposed. The fury that had radiated from him earlier had banked to a simmer, but she could still feel it through the bond, a cold, calculating rage that promised retribution. "How is she otherwise?" Theron asked. Mara's hands paused. She looked at Nova with knowing eyes. "You tried to shift during the attack." "It wasn't a question. My wolf wanted to protect us," Nova said quietly. "I didn't know how to control it. And you nearly tore yourself apart in the process." Mara's tone was matter-of-fact, not accusatory. "Your wolf is strong, Luna, stronger than you realize. But strength without control is dangerous. You need training before you attempt a full shift, or next time you might not survive it." "I'll personally oversee her training," Theron said immediately. "Starting tomorrow." "Not tomorrow," Mara corrected, her authority clear despite speaking to an Alpha King. "She needs rest, The day after, perhaps. And gentle training coaxing the wolf out, not forcing it. Theron nodded, accepting the healer's wisdom. Mara finished applying the salve and wrapped Nova's arm in soft bandages. There. You'll be sore for a few days, but you'll heal. You're tougher than you look, Luna Nova. Thank you, Nova said softly. After Mara left, silence filled the healing chambers. Theron remained against the wall, his amber eyes fixed on Nova with an expression she couldn't quite read. Say it, Nova finally said. Whatever you're thinking, just say it. I failed you. The words surprised her. What? No. You saved me. I failed you before that. Theron pushed off the wall, moving closer. You've been in my territory for less than 2 days, and someone already tried to kill you. That means I didn't secure your safety properly. I didn't anticipate how quickly my enemies would move. Your enemies? Or mine? They're the same now. Theron's jaw tightened. The bond makes it so. Anyone who wants to hurt me knows the fastest way is through you. And I... He stopped, something vulnerable flickering across his features. I should have protected you better. Nova slid off the table, wincing slightly at the pull of her injured arm. Theron, you can't guard me every second, and I don't want you to. I'm not some fragile thing that needs constant protection. You almost died tonight, but I didn't. She stepped closer to him, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. I survived. My wolf tried to protect me, and yes, I made mistakes. I trusted too easily. I walked into a trap, but I learned from it. That's how I get stronger. Theron's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. The gentleness of the gesture contrasted sharply with the violence she'd seen him capable of. You're remarkable, he said quietly. Most wolves in your position would be demanding I send you back to your old pack, bond or no bond. Instead, you're talking about getting stronger. I can't go back. Nova's voice was firm. There's nothing for me there except chains and cruelty. Here, at least, I have a chance to be something more. Even with assassins trying to kill you? Even then. She managed a small smile. Though I wouldn't mind knowing who hired that wolf to attack me. Theron's expression darkened. Kale is interrogating the body's family and associates now. We'll have answers by morning. You think it was Aldrich? Or Serena? I think it was someone desperate enough to risk my wrath. Theron's hand dropped away, which makes them either very stupid or very powerful. Possibly both. A knock interrupted them. Kale entered, his expression grim. Alpha, King, we have preliminary findings. Speak. Kale glanced at Nova, hesitating. She stays, Theron said firmly. This concerns her directly. She has a right to know. Kale nodded. The assassin was named Derek, low-ranking warrior, recently transferred from border duty. We found a pouch of gold coins in his quarters, more money than a wolf of his rank should have. Someone paid him well. AP. Who? Theron's voice was deadly quiet. He was careful. No letters, no witnesses to meetings. But we found something interesting, a silver pin among his belongings. It bears the crest of the Eastern Territories. Nova saw Theron go very still. The Eastern Territories? Alpha Serena's domain? Not just any pin, Kale continued. This particular design is only given to wolves in direct service to the Alpha's family. It's not something you can buy or steal easily. Understanding crashed over Nova. You think Alpha Serena of the Eastern Territories hired someone to kill me? I think someone wants us to believe that, Theron said carefully. The pin is too obvious, too convenient. Either Alpha Serena is behind this and incredibly sloppy, or someone is trying to frame her and start a war between territories. Or, Kale added, the pin is real, and Alpha Serena is working with someone inside our own pack. Someone who knew the castle layout well enough to direct an assassin to those spelled corridors. The implications hung in the air like poison. Aldrich serves as our liaison to the Eastern Territories, Theron said slowly. He and Alpha Serena have worked together on border negotiations for years. And his daughter Serena, our Serena, is named after Alpha Serena as a sign of respect and alliance, Kale finished. If Aldrich wanted to remove Luna Nova without directly implicating himself, hiring an Eastern wolf would be clever. He could claim Alpha Serena acted independently, or blame it on Eastern aggression. Nova's mind raced. But why would Alpha Serena want me dead? I've never even met her. Because, Theron said quietly. 3 months ago, Alpha Serena proposed an alliance marriage. She offered her sister's daughter, also named Serena, to be my mate. I refused. The pieces clicked into place. Your Beta's daughter, the one named after Alpha Serena, the one who confronted me at the feast tonight. Exactly. Theron's expression was grim. If I'd accepted that marriage alliance, it would have unified the northern and eastern territories under joint rule. Aldrich would have seen his bloodline elevated to royalty through his daughter, and Alpha Serena would have gained influence over my territories. But instead, you bonded with me, Nova said. A nobody Omega from a weak pack. I ruined everything they'd been planning, which makes you a threat that needs to be eliminated. Kale's voice was matter of fact. The question is, do we confront Aldrich directly, or do we investigate further? Theron was quiet for a long moment, his strategic mind clearly working through options. We investigate. If we accuse Aldrich without absolute proof, he'll deny everything. Worse, if there are other conspirators, they'll go to ground. He looked at Kale. Double the guard on Nova's chambers. No one enters except people I personally approve. And assign Lissa as her permanent bodyguard. Lissa's loyalty is beyond question. What about the feast? Kale asked. It's still going on. People will wonder why you're not there. Let them wonder. Theron's voice was steel. My mate was just attacked in my own castle. Anyone who questions my priorities can challenge me directly. Kale bowed and left. Silence fell again. Nova could feel exhaustion pulling at her, but her mind was too active to rest. You're thinking too much, Theron observed. I'm thinking that 2 days ago, my biggest problem was avoiding Beta Rowan. Now I'm caught in territorial politics involving potential wars and assassination plots. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not equipped for this, Theron. I'm just an Omega who… Stop. Theron's hands gripped her shoulders gently. Stop calling yourself just an Omega. You're my mate. You're a Luna Queen. And yes, you're new to this world. But you're learning fast. Tonight proved that. Tonight proved I'm naive and trusting. Tonight proved you're brave enough to answer what you thought was a summons from your mate, even though you were exhausted and wary. His amber eyes held hers. That's not naivety, Nova. That's loyalty. And in a world full of wolves playing political games, loyalty is more valuable than cunning. The sincerity in his voice made something in Nova's chest tighten. Why do you believe in me so much? She whispered. You barely know me, because the bond doesn't lie. Theron's thumb brushed across her shoulder. I feel what you feel, remember? Your fear, your courage, your determination. I felt you trying to protect yourself tonight, even though you were terrified. I felt your wolf rising to defend you, even though it meant pain. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Nova wanted to believe him. Moon Goddess. She wanted to believe that she could be more than what her old pack had told her she was. Come on, Theron said, releasing her shoulders. I'm taking you back to your chambers, and you're going to rest. Tomorrow, no. The day after we'll start your training. We'll teach your wolf to emerge properly. We'll teach you to fight, to defend yourself. You'll never be helpless again. They walked through the castle's corridors together, and Nova noticed the increased security immediately. Guards at every intersection, their eyes sharp and watchful. Wolves she didn't recognize patrolling the hallways. When they reached her suite, Lissa was already there, standing at attention outside the door. Luna Nova. Lissa greeted her with a respectful nod. Alpha King. I've checked the rooms thoroughly. All windows are secured, and I'll be stationed outside all night. Thank you, Commander, Theron said. Then, to Nova. Sleep. I'll be in my own chambers if you need me through the bond. Just call out mentally, and I'll hear you. Nova nodded, suddenly too tired to argue or question, but before entering her suite, she turned back. Theron, thank you for saving me tonight. His expression softened. Always, Nova. I will always come for you. She believed him. That should have terrified her, relying on someone, trusting someone after years of betrayal. Instead, it felt like coming home. Nova slept fitfully, her dreams haunted by claws and shadows. She woke several times, her wolf restless and agitated, the bond with Theron humming with his own sleeplessness. He's worried, her wolf observed. About us. He should be worried about finding the traitor. Nova thought back. We're the same thing. Protecting us means protecting his rule. It was a cynical observation, but probably accurate. Nova had no illusions that Theron loved her. The bond was new, barely 2 days old. He valued her because the moon goddess had chosen her as his mate, because prophecy had marked her as important. But was that enough to build a relationship on? Did it matter if it wasn't? She was bound to him either way. Morning came slowly, gray light filtering through the windows. Nova rose, dressed in simple training clothes that Iris had left out, and tried not to wince every time her injured arm moved. Lissa knocked precisely at dawn. Luna Nova. The Alpha King requests your presence for breakfast. Private dining room, not the Great Hall. Relief flooded through Nova. She wasn't ready to face the entire pack again yet. The private dining room was smaller, more intimate, with windows overlooking the forest. Theron was already there, along with Kyle and a she-wolf. Nova didn't recognize Tall, with dark skin and intelligent brown eyes. Nova. Theron gestured to the seat beside him. This is Maya, my lead investigator. She has news. Maya bowed respectfully. Luna Nova. I've been investigating the attack last night. We've traced Derek's movements over the past month. And? Nova asked, sitting carefully. 3 weeks ago, Derek received a letter requesting he meet someone at a tavern in the neutral zone. He went alone. The tavern owner remembers him meeting with a hooded figure, couldn't identify them, but said they spoke for nearly an hour. The Eastern pin? Theron prompted. Planted, Maya said confidently. We found the merchant who sold it, a traveling trader who had no idea what it was. He sold it to Derek 2 days ago for a handful of copper. Derek barely looked at it, just tucked it away. Someone wanted us to find that pin, wanted us to suspect the Eastern Territories, which means the real culprit is closer to home, Kale said grimly. Aldrich. Nova said quietly. We can't prove it yet, Maya warned. But we're watching him. And his daughter. If either of them makes contact with any suspicious individuals, we'll know. Theron nodded. Continue your investigation. Be subtle. I want absolute proof before we make any moves. Maya left, and servants brought breakfast eggs, fresh bread, fruit, and meat. Nova tried to eat, but her stomach was knotted with tension. You're safe here, Theron said quietly, as if sensing her thoughts through the bond. I won't let anyone hurt you again. You can't promise that, Nova said. Not when the threat is inside your own pack. Then I'll root out the threat. His voice held absolute certainty. However long it takes. Nova looked at him, this powerful, dangerous Alpha King, who'd gone from stranger to mate in the span of 2 days, who'd saved her life, promised her protection, and somehow made her feel like she mattered. Why me? She asked again. Really? Strip away the prophecy, the bond, the politics. Why do you want me? Theron set down his fork, his full attention on her. Because when I look at you, I don't see an omega or a political pawn or a burden to be managed. I see someone who survived 19 years of cruelty and came out with her humanity intact. Someone who values freedom over safety. Someone who would rather kiss a beggar than submit to abuse. He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. You're real, Nova. In a world full of masks and manipulation, you're painfully, beautifully real. And that's rarer than you know. The words settled over her like a blessing. Maybe, she thought, this bond wasn't a mistake after all. Maybe the moon goddess knew exactly what she was doing. Chapter 10. The Luna's Choice. 3 days passed in a blur of training and investigation. Nova spent her mornings with Theron in a private training ground, deep in the forest, learning to call her wolf without forcing the shift. It was harder than she'd imagined. Her wolf was eager, powerful, but untrained, like a wild horse that had been caged for years and now didn't know how to run properly. Feel her, Theron instructed, circling Nova as she stood in the center of the clearing. Don't command. Don't force. Just open the door and let her know she's welcome. Nova closed her eyes, reaching inward. Her wolf was there immediately, pressing against her consciousness with desperate eagerness. Gently, Nova thought. We have time. We've wasted 19 years, her wolf growled back. I want oat. She's impatient, Nova said aloud. Of course she is. Theron's voice was closer now. She's been suppressed since birth, but impatience leads to mistakes. Teach her patience, and she'll be stronger for it. Nova tried again, coaxing rather than commanding. Slowly, carefully, she felt her wolf begin to emerge, not a full shift, but a partial one. Her senses sharpened, her strength increased. Golden light flickered beneath her skin. Good, Theron murmured. Now hold it. Don't let her take over completely. You're partners, not opponents. The strain was immense. Nova's muscles trembled with effort, sweat beading on her forehead. But she held the partial shift for 10 seconds. 20. 30. Enough, Theron said gently. Release her slowly. Don't just slam the door, ease it closed. Nova did, and her wolf retreated with reluctant grace. When she opened her eyes, Theron was smiling. Better, much better. A few more days of this, and you'll be ready for a full shift. The afternoons were spent with Lissa, learning combat basics. Nova had never fought before. Omegas weren't trained for battle, but Lissa was a patient, if demanding, teacher. You're small, Lissa said, circling Nova in the training ring. Use that. Be fast, be unpredictable. Don't try to overpower an opponent, outsmart them. She lunged, and Nova barely dodged. Lissa's fist passed inches from her face. Too slow. Again. They drilled for hours. Dodges, blocks, strikes. Nova's body ached everywhere, her injured arm protesting despite Mara's healing. But she pushed through the pain, driven by the memory of being helpless as Derek attacked her. Never again. She would never be helpless again. The evenings were strangest of all. Theron insisted she dine with him privately, away from the pack's judging eyes. They talked about his 30 years as Alpha King, about the territories he'd unified, about the politics that kept the peace, and about the prophecy. The seer told me more than just the blood moon birth, Theron admitted on the third night, over wine and roasted venison. She said my mate would be the key to ending a great darkness. That without her, the territories would fall into chaos and war. Nova set down her glass. What darkness? I don't know. Prophecies are notoriously vague. Theron's expression was troubled. But something is coming. I've felt it for months, a tension in the territories, old rivalries resurfacing, peace agreements fraying at the edges. I've been holding everything together through force and fear, but that's not sustainable. And you think I'm supposed to fix that? Nova's laugh was bitter. I'm barely learning to control my wolf. How am I supposed to prevent wars? Maybe not through strength, Theron said thoughtfully. Maybe through something else. The seer said you would see worth, where others see nothing, and in that recognition, unite what was broken. He met her eyes. You saw worth in a beggar. What else might you see that the rest of us miss? The question lingered between them, unanswered. That night, as Nova prepared for bed, the bond suddenly flared with urgency. Nova, Theron's voice came through clearly. Come to my study. Now, we have a problem. She threw on a robe and found Lissa already at her door. The Alpha King called you? Yes. What's wrong? I don't know. But his power just spiked. Everyone in the castle felt it. Lissa's hand rested on her sword. Stay close to me. They hurried through corridors lit by emergency torches. Guards were everywhere, their expressions tense. Something had happened, something big. Theron's study was on the castle's top floor, in one of the towers. When they arrived, they found Kale, Maya, and several other high-ranking wolves already gathered. And in the center of the room, restrained by 2 guards, was Serena. Her beautiful face was bruised and bloodied, her dress torn, but her ice-blue eyes blazed with defiant fury. What happened? Nova asked. We caught her, Maya said grimly. She was in the castle's lower levels, trying to access the spelled corridors where you were attacked. She had a key one that's only held by 3 people. The Alpha King, Commander Lissa, and Beta Aldrich. Nova's blood ran cold. Where is Aldrich? Missing, Kale said. His chambers are empty. His personal guards claim he left on border patrol yesterday, but there's no record of him requesting permission to leave. Theron stood by the window, his back to them, radiating controlled fury. Tell her what you told me, Serena. Serena's lips curved into a bloody smile. Why don't you tell her yourself, Alpha King? Tell her the whole truth about why you really needed a mate so desperately. Theron? Nova moved closer to him. What is she talking about? He didn't turn. The prophecy had a deadline. I had until the winter solstice to find my true mate and complete the bond. If I failed, my power would begin to deteriorate. Within a year, I would lose my position as Alpha King, and the territories would fracture into war. The words hit Nova like a physical blow. What? The seer was specific. Theron continued, his voice flat. My mate wasn't just a companion. She was a magical anchor, a source of power that would stabilize my rule. Without her, everything I've built for 30 years would collapse. So you needed me, Nova said slowly. Not wanted. Needed. For your power. Yes. The single word shattered something inside her chest. All those pretty speeches about seeing her worth, about valuing her courage, they were just manipulation. He'd needed a mate before the deadline, and she'd conveniently walked right up to him and offered herself. When is the winter solstice? Nova asked, her voice hollow. 12 days, Serena said with vicious satisfaction. He was running out of time. That's why he disguised himself as a beggar and waited at that market. He was desperate. You just happened to be the first fool desperate enough to approach him. Shut up, Theron growled. Oh, did I ruin your romance? Serena's laugh was cruel. She should know what she is to you, a magical battery, a tool to maintain your power, nothing more. I said shut up. Theron's power exploded outward, driving everyone except Nova to their knees. The windows rattled. The furniture shook. In the sudden silence, Nova's quiet voice cut like a blade. Is it true? Am I just a tool to you? Theron finally turned to face her. His amber eyes blazed with emotion, anger, guilt, fear, and something else she couldn't name. Yes, he said. At first, I needed you for the prophecy, for my power, for political stability. But Nova, save it. Nova interrupted. The betrayal burned through her chest like acid. All this time, you've been lying. The training, the protection, the pretty words about seeing my worth, it was all just to make sure your magical anchor stayed alive and bonded. That's not, isn't it? Nova's voice rose. Tell me honestly. If I hadn't walked up to you that night, would you have picked someone else? Anyone else? As long as they fit the prophecy? Theron's silence was answer enough. I thought so. Nova turned toward the door, but Theron moved faster, blocking her path. Let me explain, he said desperately. Yes, I needed you for the prophecy. Yes, I would have bonded with whoever the moon goddess marked as my mate. But Nova, these past 3 days, getting to know you, training with you, talking with you, that's been real. What I feel for you is real. How can I believe anything you say? Nova's voice cracked. Everything has been a lie from the beginning. Not everything, Theron insisted. My actions weren't lies. I saved you from that attack. I've protected you, trained you, valued you. Because I'm your power source. Nova shoved past him, her wolf snarling in her chest. I need air. I need to think. Don't leave this castle, Theron commanded. Aldrich is still out there, and he wants you dead. You're not safe. I'm not safe anywhere. Nova whirled back to face him. Not from external enemies. And apparently not from my own mate, who sees me as a magical tool. She fled before he could respond, Lissa following silently behind her. Nova ended up in the castle's highest tower, on a balcony overlooking the vast northern forest. The wind was cold, but she welcomed it. It cleared her head, helped her think past the hurt and betrayal. He's not wrong, you know, Lissa said quietly from the doorway. About needing you. The prophecy is real. Without a mate, the Alpha King's power will fail, and the territories will descend into war. Thousands will die. So I'm supposed to just accept being used? Nova demanded. Accept that my whole purpose is to be a magical anchor for someone else's power? No. Lissa stepped onto the balcony. You're supposed to decide if that's all you are, or if you're something more. Nova turned to face her. What do you mean? The Alpha King needed you for the prophecy. That's true. But what have you seen from him these past 3 days? Lissa's green eyes were intense. He could have locked you away, kept you safe but isolated. Instead, he trained you, taught you to control your wolf, gave you the tools to protect yourself. Those aren't the actions of someone who sees you as just a tool. Or he's making sure his investment stays functional. Is he? Lissa challenged. Because I've served the Alpha King for 15 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. I've never heard him speak with such vulnerability. He showed you his fears tonight, Nova. He could have kept lying, but he told you the truth when pressed. Only because Serena forced his hand. Maybe. Lissa shrugged. Or maybe he was looking for a reason to be honest. Political games require masks, and he's worn his for 30 years. You're the first person who might actually see past it. Nova was quiet for a long moment, her mind churning. The bond pulsed in her chest. She could feel Theron's anguish through it, his desperate hope that she wouldn't leave. What about Serena? Nova asked. And Aldrich? Serena confirmed her father is behind the assassination attempts. Aldrich wanted to prevent your bonding, thinking that without you, the Alpha King would be forced to accept a political marriage with Alpha Serena of the East. When that failed, he tried to kill you to break the bond before it fully settled. Lissa's voice hardened. We have wolves tracking him now. He won't escape justice. And Serena? Dungeons. She'll face trial for attempted murder and conspiracy. Lissa paused. But that's not really what you're asking, is it? You want to know if you should stay? I don't know, Nova admitted. Part of me wants to run, to find somewhere I'm valued for myself and not for what I can provide. But another part loves him, Lissa finished gently. Or is starting to. Did she? Nova touched her chest, feeling the bond. Through it, she sensed Theron, his strength, his vulnerability, his genuine fear of losing her. The bond didn't lie. Whatever his initial motivations, what he felt now was real. And what did she feel? Fear, betrayal, anger, but also connection, recognition, the sense that maybe, just maybe, they could build something real from this flawed beginning. The Luna ceremony, Nova said slowly. I kissed a beggar to avoid being claimed, but I ended up claiming a king, and maybe. She looked at Lissa. Maybe that's the whole point. We both started this for the wrong reasons. But we have a chance to choose each other now, knowing the truth. That's more than most bonded pairs get. Lissa smiled. You're wiser than you realize, Luna. I'm terrified, Nova corrected. But I'm also tired of running. She straightened her shoulders. Take me back to Theron. We need to talk. Theron was still in his study when Nova returned, everyone else dismissed. He stood at the window, his posture defeated in a way she'd never seen before. I'm sorry, he said without turning. You're right to leave. I'll release you from the bond. There are ways, ancient rituals. It'll be painful, possibly fatal, but if it's what you want. Stop, Nova interrupted. I'm not leaving. He spun to face her. What? I'm not leaving, she repeated, moving closer. But we need to establish some rules. Hope flickered across his face. Anything. First, no more lies. Ever. I don't care how ugly the truth is, I want honesty, always. Done. Second, I'm not your tool or your anchor or your magical battery. I'm your partner. That means I get a say in decisions, especially ones that affect my life. Agreed. Third. Nova took a deep breath. You're going to court me properly. I know we're already bonded, but I want you to choose me every day. Not because the prophecy demands it, but because you want to. Theron's expression softened. Nova, I already want to. These past 3 days, getting to know you, it's been the most genuine time I've had in decades. Then prove it. She held out her hand. Start over with me. Strip away the prophecy, the politics, the desperation. Just be Theron, and let me be Nova. And we'll see if we can build something real. He took her hand, his grip warm and strong. I can do that. His smile was tentative. Though I should warn you, I'm terrible at courting. 30 years of being an alpha king hasn't left much time for romance. Good thing I'm terrible at being courted, Nova said. We'll figure it out together. The bond flared between them, warm and golden and right. This time, it didn't feel like a cage or a burden. It felt like possibility. Aldrich will still come for you, Theron warned. As long as he's free, you're in danger. Then we'll face him together. Nova's wolf stirred in agreement. I'm done being helpless. I'm done hiding. If someone wants to hurt me, they'll have to go through both of us. Both of us, Theron agreed. Always. He pulled her closer, and Nova let him, resting her head against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat strong, steady, matching her own. The winter solstice is in 12 days, she said quietly. What happens if we're not fully bonded by then? We'll be bonded, Theron said with certainty. The physical bond is already complete, the claiming mark, the connection. What we're building now is the emotional bond, and that. He pulled back to look at her. That might take longer than 12 days. But it'll be worth the wait. And your power will stabilize either way. The prophecy required a true mate bond. It didn't specify that we had to be madly in love. Just genuinely bonded. We have that. He smiled. Everything else is just extra. Good extra, Nova clarified. The best extra, Theron agreed. A commotion in the corridor interrupted them. Cale burst in, his expression triumphant. We found Aldrich. He was attempting to cross into the Eastern Territories, but our border patrol caught him. He's in custody, along with 3 of his co-conspirators. Relief flooded through Nova. He's really caught? He's really caught, Cale confirmed. And he's already confessing everything: how he planned to kill Luna Nova, how he conspired with certain factions in the Eastern Territories who wanted to prevent the Alpha King from stabilizing his power, how he intended to force a political marriage instead. Bring him to trial tomorrow, Theron ordered. Public trial, so everyone sees justice served. And send word to Alpha Serena of the East. I want her to know that her conspirators have been caught. Cale bowed and left. Silence fell again, but this time it was comfortable, peaceful. So, Theron said, a hint of mischief in his eyes. Since we're starting over and courting properly, does that mean I should ask permission before I kiss you? Nova pretended to think about it. Probably. Just to be proper. Luna Nova Blackfang, Theron said formally, though his eyes sparkled with humor. May I have permission to kiss you? That depends, Nova said. Are you kissing me because the bond demands it? Or because you want to? Because I desperately want to, Theron said honestly. Because you're brave and fierce, and absolutely remarkable. Because when you stood up to Aldrich in front of the entire pack, I realized I'd never met anyone quite like you. Because, Nova kissed him, cutting off his words. This kiss was different from the Luna ceremony. That one had been desperate, a means to an end. This one was a choice, a genuine, honest choice, made with full knowledge of the risks and rewards. The bond sang between them, and Nova felt her wolf rise up with joy, recognizing its mate not out of magical compulsion but out of genuine connection. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. So, Theron said softly. Was that a yes? That was definitely a yes, Nova confirmed. Good. He pulled her close again. Because I plan on asking permission a lot. Nova laughed, the first genuine, unguarded laugh she'd had in years. I'll try not to deny it too often. They stood together on the tower balcony as dawn broke over the Northern Territories, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The castle stirred to life below them, and somewhere in the forest, wolves howled their morning songs. What do we do now? Nova asked. Now? Theron considered. Now we finish your training. We hold Aldrich's trial. We strengthen the territories. We prove to everyone that you're not just my mate, but a Luna Queen worthy of respect. That's a lot of work. We have time. Theron's arms tightened around her. We have the rest of our lives. And for the first time since her mother died, Nova believed in the future. Not a future forced on her by cruel fate or desperate circumstance, but a future she was actively choosing. A future where she wasn't just surviving but thriving. Where she wasn't just an omega or a tool or a mistake. Where she was Nova Blackfang, Luna Queen of the Northern Territories, mate to the Alpha King. And exactly where she was meant to be. The bond hummed with contentment. Her wolf settled peacefully in her chest, and Nova knew with absolute certainty. She had found her home. Epilogue. 3 months later, as snow fell softly over the northern castle, Luna Nova stood before the assembled pack in her full wolf form for the first time. She was magnificent, silver-white fur that gleamed like moonlight, eyes that blazed with golden fire, and a presence that commanded respect without demanding submission. Beside her, Theron's massive black wolf stood proud, their shoulders touching in a gesture of partnership and equality. The pack howled their approval, acknowledging not just their Alpha King, but their Luna Queen. And Nova, who'd spent 19 years believing she was broken, finally understood the truth. She had never been broken. She had only been waiting for the right moment to become whole. Thank you for joining Nova on her journey from an unwanted Omega to a powerful Luna Queen. If this story reminded you that worth isn't given, it's recognized, please subscribe. Your support allows me to continue creating stories where the undervalued discover their true strength, where desperate choices lead to extraordinary transformations, and where love isn't about perfection, but about choosing each other, flaws and all. Subscribe, and become part of a community that believes everyone deserves their moment to shine.